it's number 3, sidewalk, alleyways, bikeways, and pedestrian safety. I actually think that subcategory, exclusive of alleys, really should belong under active transportation, because sidewalks, bikeways, and pedestrian safety, really, those things are normally considered active transportation. Alleyways could easily be included under basic infrastructure. So I should have made this request at the last meeting, but that was a failure on my part. So my request really is, if it's possible at this late date, to move that subcategory number 3, sidewalks, bikeways, and pedestrian safety, from existing neighborhood roads down to active transportation.
We can entertain that as a motion if you have a second, and then we can open up to discussion.
Yeah, I could make that motion.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, who was second? Could you say your name, please? Gail?
Gail.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So my understanding is that one of the things we're talking about, and I know Nick's going to come at me with this thing, complete streets. There's a legal definition of complete streets, but the idea behind this proposal was to go in that direction. I'm not sure it checks every box for complete streets, but that's the intent, is to move in that direction when they define neighborhood roads. I'll turn it over to COG staff. So Paul, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the intent of the committee was to broaden what we traditionally think of as a local existing neighborhood category, and past measures, or what we've seen other measures, to include elements beyond just paving. And that would allow and give more flexibility to the jurisdictions when they develop projects. We've heard actually some positive response to including these elements in this category, because it does allow for more flexibility when they construct projects. So yeah, we've heard positive feedback to actually include it where it is today. It could be something where we make it also allowable within the active transportation category, but I think removing it from this first category potentially would actually disappoint some folks that were looking to see it actually stay in this category. So that's, I think, thoughts of folks I've spoken to about this specific topic.
Anybody else want to make a comment on this? No, I'm only thinking, just as an outside person, just looking at that, saying it does allow more money to go toward roads if you include these other things as part of it. So I think we'll encourage people maybe to vote for more money for roads, because it includes more stuff. So with that, we do have a motion. We have a second. So if you agree with Nick that we should take this, I guess, Nick, you're saying take it out of the road
Yeah,
category?
well, the concept of complete streets is something I'm in complete agreement for. The idea, the concept of active transportation came along prior to the concept of complete streets. So now complete streets is a new concept, came along later. His idea is that when you build a new street, or reconstruct a street, or do an enhancement to a street, you design it for all ages and abilities, or you do a retrofit.
Mhm.
And it could work. It could work in either one, probably. It should be, either one or the other, but not both.
Well, I actually anticipated Nick mentioning this, so I actually looked it up. Complete Streets Act was in 2008, so it was after the last measure was 2006. Though I guess the last measure that passed was 2006. So, but complete streets, from what I understand, a lot of that is incorporated in the way this is defined. So with that, we have a motion second. With any more discussion on this? Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm kind of new to the committee, but so as I envision this, I think they really should be in both categories. It makes sense to me. So the complete streets, as I understand it, would go, from having bike lanes on potentially either side, where the active transportation kind of lifts the bike lanes and the transportation lanes to kind of a higher level. I think about what just recently happened over on Audubon and Friant, where there's actual separation, or Higuera Street in San Luis Obispo, where now they have divided curbs, or not curbs. I'm thinking of I don't have the right name, but protected lanes. and that this would allow for some money set aside for protected lanes. So I think it makes sense in both categories.
And two things for the record. One, number one, I want everybody to note that Larry's wearing a Cal Poly shirt, so that's why he's talking about San Luis Obispo. The second thing is, yeah, you could, and maybe Nick, maybe you'll withdraw your motion, it depends. If we added it, if we brought the same vote up under active transportation where it appears in two places, would that be all right for you as opposed to taking it out of this one?
Well, I don't think it should be in both. I
Okay,
mean,
then
you know,
the
that seems to be double dipping.
okay.
I mean, I may be arguing against myself in this regard, but one or the other, you know, because you may sometimes want to do a special project, you know, to put cycle tracks. I prefer the legal term cycle tracks over protected bike lanes.
Okay.
But you may want to do a special project to retrofit a street to put in a cycle track
Okay.
or
All right,
bike lanes.
I want to make sure that other people get a chance. Veronica, were you going to say something? I don't know if you were going to say something. It looked like you were about to say something.
I don't want to belabor the conversation. All I was going to say is I think Paul and even Larry, for your first time being here, I think got hit it in the nail on the head that these were supposed to be separate. I don't see them as, the intent was to go much broader in category 1 to give the jurisdictions flexibility to add where it's reasonable, where it makes sense, where it's possible. And the active transportation subcategory, I see it as a very dedicated programs for very specific trail by cycle tracks, if that's the way, that would be very specific projects intended for that purpose only, whereas it's much broader in the existing categories.
Okay, we've got to move through a lot of categories, so if there's no more discussion, you want to put it up for a vote? Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. Yes, that's right. We also said we needed a second to move something forward. That is absolutely correct. I apologize. Do we have a second on Nick's motion? Okay, I don't hear a second, so unfortunately, Nick, your motion can't
Aye.
come up for a vote. All right, let's continue. Are there any other questions about the existing neighborhood roads category as it's been kind of redefined?
And again, I'm sorry, I'm new here, but I'm wondering on, and maybe it's implied in all of these, but I thought there should be some language that talked about planning and design, that the funding would allow for planning and design. And really, in my experience, all of the categories have a design and
My recollection is, and Veronica, correct, going back to Veronica again, my recollection is you had that under administration, didn't you? As technical
Well,
advice?
I can chime in here. All projects, and this would be in the implementing guidelines, but yes, there would be project development or environmental and design as part of any project that gets developed, and Measure C would be an allowable revenue source for that. So really here, we call out specific infrastructure that in the built environment, but yes, there is environmental reviews and design that occurs for all of these projects, and Measure C would be eligible for that. So we didn't want to, yeah.
just as long as it's clear and
Yeah,
understood.
the implementing guidelines will clarify when we develop that document. It will be very clear that it will have allow Measure C dollars for those components.
Okay,
And
thank
just
you.
to add a little bit of clarity to what Mark started to talk about, there's a community planning subcategory in other, and that was intended particularly to allow for community plans in certain jurisdictions that may not, like dedicated funding solely for planning that could then go into implementation as well.
Okay, is it all right if we move on to the next subcategory? Any questions about the public transportation final edit? Yeah, go ahead, Lee.
Were we going to try to italicize the new items?
Yes, and yeah, they can't do it right now at this very moment, I don't think,
Right.
but yes, your request is noted and it will be done by COG staff. I just gave them homework.
On a subsequent list?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Great, we're making progress here. Okay, what about the next category? Active transportation. You have a question, Lee?
My next category says public transportation.
We just went past, we just did public transportation. Do you have a question on public transportation?
We did that already?
We just did that, yes.
Yeah, there was no question.
There were no questions on that, so we went forward to active.
Oh, apologize for being asleep.
You don't apologize to me because I do that all the time. Is there a question, Lee, on that? Okay. Moses is telling my, Mark, do this. And he's right. Yeah, go ahead.
On active transportation, safe routes to schools. This is a minor point, maybe nitpicking. Emphasis on routes within 1/2 mile of a school site. A 1/2 mile limitation makes sense for pedestrians, but that's rather short for bicycles. Some emphasis on a 1/2 mile of a school site for pedestrians, but
Okay.
but for bicycles, probably more
That-
like a
I
mile.
understand your point. Did you use that was nitpicking or nitpicking? I wasn't sure I heard that right.
Nit-
Bad joke. Paul, why don't you describe the 1/2 mile?
Yeah, so we recently just adopted a new Safe Routes to School program within the current 2006 Measure C plan. We had it amended in with $6 million of a revenue that was over allocated in other programs. And as part of the Safe Routes to School program, we've used the criteria of a 1/2 mile to ensure that the resources are focused on school sites specifically. That is something that can be changed if there's, a willingness to do that amongst this committee, but that is essentially what we use for the current Safe Routes to School guidelines and application process.
Quick
Go ahead,
question
Lon.
on that, Paul, was that was a factor in setting that distance requirement because of $6 million is not very much and you wanted to make the funds go further?
Yeah, I mean, that was a part of the calculation there, that we didn't have much resources, and to ensure that it got spent around a school site, we did do the 1/2 mile. Generally, 1/2 mile is considered the walk shed to a lot of school sites. That's also a consideration when we develop the program. But again, that's something that
Yeah,
obviously
but
can be
yeah.
modified.
Like I say, it makes.
Nick, is
sense.
your mic on?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, the mic is on, but I could lean forward closer to the mic. That would help. Yeah, I agree with you. It makes a 1/2 mile as a walk shed. But bicycling, particularly for, 6th grade, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, that's
Can I make
bicycling.
can I make a suggestion, Nick? What about, instead of using the term within a 1/2 mile, something like within an appropriate distance?
That's probably too vague.
Hmm.
What I would say, Nick, is that again, at the broad level, this is what we have today. Obviously, when we start developing the guidelines, we will need to get into all the details. And I think that would also be an opportunity to have a discussion around 1/2 mile or mile, or what makes sense for a Safe Routes to Schools program. We can also take a look at other Safe Routes to Schools program and see how they treated this pedestrian versus bicycle, distance to school sites.
The other thing I think, just thinking out loud, that Nick points to is, electric bikes and electric scooters do give, it seems to me, would give people more range. So that is, and that's something new that really is just, you're seeing now in the last couple of years.
Oh, yes, definitely. With an electric bike and electric scooter, your range is considerably enhanced.
Yeah. Larry?
I think Mr. Paldino makes a good point. I would kind of be in favor of just striking the 1/2 mile. I mean, for 20 years, we're going to probably, or 30 years, find instances where just it's such an unsafe route to school that we should be able to reach out and help that. I can think of some rural school districts right now that a 1/2 mile, would. Anyway, I think.
Well, you could make a
leave some-
motion to
leave some
amend, you could make a motion to
flexibility.
amend that
Oh, I could.
and either take out the thing or use the terminology. I was suggesting, if you want to change that, that's why we're doing this final edit. Anybody want to make a motion that way? Or?
So I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'll make a
Okay.
motion to strike the 1/2 mile. And leave it to planners and folks to be able to figure out if it's not a safe route to school, then, let's
Okay.
figure out how to make it safe.
We need 2 seconds for that to go up for a vote.
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
Need to say your name so that keep it on the record, please.
Naomi,
And Nick?
And Nick. Okay, with that, what's easiest for staff, if we just had a show of hands at this point, or if we're doing a vote on, because there's a slight change they want, would it be easier if just do a show of hands?
It's up to you. We can do a Mentimeter if you guys want to log in. We will be doing Mentimeter at some point, so we can do it
Let's-
now with a yes, no, or an approved disapprove.
You're working on that, so just to keep things moving along quickly, I just think a show of hands would work.
We need 19.
We need 19, so, and that includes people online. So we've got 1, 2, 3, oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19. Yes, the motion passes. So I didn't, which we may want to do though, do you need? Okay, fine. Was that unanimous? It was unanimous. That's easy. Okay, fine. All right. There you go. We like that. That's great. Okay, anything else on active transportation? I shouldn't have had that second cup of coffee today. I already know I made that mistake. Nothing more? Okay, so with that, let's go on to the next category. What about regional connectivity? Any changes you want to see there? Is it good the way it's written? Any questions about that? Yes, Lee.
Not a question, but I think it's important to know that Caltrans, for improvement of intersection or convert signal interchange to a overpass, requires local participation before they'll do anything. And that money comes from this area. So like the mayor is wanting to revise Shaw Avenue 99, that's going to come out of this. So it's
So with that,
expensive,
okay.
expensive category.
Okay, I got it. And we can have staff, they can speak to that, city staff and county staff can speak to the cost of that, of doing those kinds of things. All right, with that, I don't hear anybody else. Let's move on to the other category.
Wait, no, Sarah, online is,
Okay, I'm sorry, what is Sarah's question?
Sarah, we can't hear you.
The other option is for her just somebody to call and then we can just get her question. That way we can keep moving things forward. By the way, that 5-minute break that's on your agenda, that's happening right now.
Okay, she wants to know, under the worst first, can we change the wording to small town safety net?
And that is under, is she talking, I'm sorry, under regional connectivity?
Yeah.
Okay,
Number 1.
It's one.
At the end of major roads, yeah.
that's already covered there? Is that what you're saying? Going, okay, I'm sorry.
Can you repeat it, Brenda? What?
Yes, number 1, under regional connectivity, major roads, the end of that, number 1 says, with consideration given to addressing the worst roads first. She wants to know if that could be changed to something about a small town safety net. Do you want that added, Sarah? Or do you want it worst roads first replaced?
It'd be good to just add it after, put a comma and small town safety net right after. period.
I'm not I am not exactly sure that there's some confusion as to what that means.
She wants it added. She said yes, but I'm not sure which one, Sarah.
Okay, so if you could define safety net, I'm not sure what that means. I think the committee's not sure what that means. If she could define that a little bit more precisely. Unless someone else knows. Does anybody else understand what she's saying? Go ahead, Lee.
I think what she is referring to is if we take a look at the pavement condition index at the small rural cities, et cetera, and we find ourselves with, pick a city, let's say Tranquility, as down in the 30s for some areas, or their average is well below the others, that the transportation measure would be allocated such that
The ones with the
I
lowest
want a
PCI.
minimum standard of 50.
Well, I think, I don't know if I'm missing this, but doesn't the worst roads first say that?
Well, kind of, but it doesn't refer to it as a net, as a minimum standard.
You know what? Let me suggest this, and also the person online. Could we deal with this in the implementation guidelines? That would seem to make more sense because we give it more precision there as opposed to what we have here. Does that make sense to folks?
She's just asking for more emphasis on the smaller towns.
Could you ask her if we could leave that for the implementation guidelines?
Can we, yeah, she can hear you.
Is that okay with her?
Is it okay, Sarah, if they put that in the implementation guidelines rather than in this definition here? Can we reword it later?
No, we can't reword the subcategories. What we can do is deal with that issue in the implementation guidelines.
Can I add something or?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Where's that coming from? I'm hearing a voice. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I can see what her point is as far as our small cities being left behind, you know, I mean, as far as where I come from, the west side of Fresno County, can tell you the need of cities like Mendota, San Joaquin, Tranquility, you know, I mean, Fireball. So I know what she's thinking, you know what I mean? And to me, it would be appropriate to have some type of language addressing.
Well, the one thing I'm thinking is worst first speaks to that. Like, for example, Orange Cove was like very low in PCI, like 30, or it was a very low number. Well, that's an objective listing of the worst first. So that would be where you would go first. If you're not comfortable with that, I think that seems to be pretty objective, you can then articulate it more specifically in implementation guidelines. Hey, by the way, we're talking about, this includes the small communities. If you need to, I think it seems to me that would be the more appropriate place to put it. This is more general. But again, if Sarah wants to do it, we'll put it up for, see if we can get a motion in 2 seconds, put it up for a vote. But what does Sarah want to do? I know you're all thinking, don't you just love technology?
I'm not sure if this is a typo. Which cat did you suggest?
I didn't. I said we dealt with in the implementation guidelines.
Oh, category. Okay, I got it. He wasn't suggesting moving it. He was suggesting it be addressed as this is fleshed out in the implementation plan. Sounds good, thanks.
Okay, great. We can just move on. Well, anything else with regional connectivity? Let's go on to other. Any comments on the other category? Yes, Lee.
This is, includes the Transportation Institute funding, correct? New technologies, because we were recognized as the only transportation measure that had new technology included previously. So that's a very good thing.
Is that in there?
I don't see it listed.
Would that be under community planning or no?
So historically, this funding for the Transportation Institute has fallen within what we categorize as the new technology program in the current measure. That could be added as part of this. It's not specifically listed here though, but we could add funding to ensure that we continue that program.
Okay. What are people's thoughts on, Lee, do you want to make a motion along those lines?
I'll make a motion to include it under number 2. It's an existing program that we have and they've been.
And are you
recognized.
specifically calling out the Transportation Institute at
Transportation
Fresno State, or
Institute.
you're just saying a research institute and not defining a specific one?
Transportation Institute at Fresno State.
Okay, so adding the Transportation Institute at Fresno State as part of that future transportation definition. Do we have a second to add that? Hearing no second, motion fails. But again, this is not the last go around, right? We can always address these things in the implementation guidelines. If it's really important to people, they can always bring it back there. So, but we want to get these things finalized. Last thing is, I'm hoping it's the easiest one, administration. Any questions on administration? Okay, with that, I think, I don't see any questions. We can move this to a vote if someone wants to make a motion to approve these finalized subcategories. Just approve or disapprove. Do you have that available for Mentimeter, Brenda? Yes, you do. Okay, why don't we, but I got their Mentimeter. You got to go dial into your phone there, I guess, and vote. And we need, I guess, 19 votes to pass.
Do you need a motion first, Mark? This is Amber.
Oh,
talking.
I'm sorry. I thought there was a motion. I apologize. Okay, Amber, you making the motion?
Sure, I'll move.
There you go. I need 2 seconds. for
I'll
vote.
second it.
Mona second, Larry second. Okay, now we can vote. Thank you. Mona was the second. Larry was the second. Okay, this is why I never attended faculty meetings. I couldn't do the process. So we got it. Yay. Congratulations. We finalized. That's great, guys. Fantastic. But here's the bad news. We're over time, so we're skipping the break. If you want to get something, feel free to get a cookie and, because I ain't taking that home, a cookie or soda. So with that, we want to have a discussion about the 20 versus 30-year measures, the other big thing we need to talk about today. I think Robert was going to make a presentation. He already has made a presentation. I sent it out to you. It was an 8-minute presentation on the difference between 20 versus 30. But just to put the final point on it, I'm going to turn the mic over to him and let him do a quick presentation.
Brenda, can you advance the slides for me? And go one more. There we go. Alrighty. Yes, 2 meetings ago, I touched on, we did a simple presentation outlining kind of the advantages of either a 20 or 30-year measure. We do have a few new people here today, and I'll briefly touch on kind of the highlights of that presentation. So for the 30-year measure, kind of the advantages of a longer measure really deal with the financial stability of having 30 years and the ability to then bond against that longer revenue stream. A longer measure also allows projects to be funded from project development, so the environmental design phase all the way through construction with more certainty. There would be more financial resources to ensure that that occurs. And it also reduces the risk of interruptions or shortfalls by having more available funding. For the 30-year measure, we're calculating a $7.39 billion total revenue, and that averages out to $247 million over the course of the 30 years. We did get a question last time of how this number can be so much higher than the 20-year measure, which I'll show you in just a minute. And that really is due to the kind of growth rate that occurs, especially in the last 10 years of the measure. So the first year of the measure will collect about $25 million, but by the time it gets to year 20, we'll be at around, I think, $250 million. And then towards the end of the measure, we're actually going to be over that $250 million mark. And that's how we get to an annual average of 247 for 30 years. If you go to the next slide. Oh, it's okay. So for the 20-year measure, obviously it's a shorter term, so it's less of a long-term tax burden on the taxpayer. And the shorter measure also does allow for a quicker reprioritization of the allocations if that were desired in the community. The total revenue here is $3.93 billion over 20 years, which averages out to $196 million annually over that period. Again, it'll start at about $120 million, and then at the end of the measure, it'll be over 196. But that is the annual average if you were to divide the total by 20 years. And then if you go to the next slide, yeah, so that's really the highlights of the 20 versus 30, and happy to take any questions. Yeah, I think I got through the presentation.
Go ahead.
I have two questions. One, in polling that you have done in the past, is there a difference between, the likelihood of voters supporting a 20 versus a 30-year?
So yeah, there has been some polling that was done 4 years ago when we did this effort. There was a marked difference in the desire for a 30-year measure just to ensure the stability and to allow for the bonding. So yeah, there was a preference in polling that was done about 3 years ago when the last effort was ongoing. So yes, there has been the desire.
And my second question is, I mean, when you see the numbers, obviously you're like, oh yeah, I want all that money. My reservation is, would there be opportunities to like review and assess, is this like really working for us, or do we need to do any changes? Because 30 years from now, we don't know. There might be flying cars and other things that we are not even envisioning at the moment. And I'm just afraid that if we are just like catch or tied to these things we're putting in this.
You are literally
proposal.
one step ahead of us.
Oh.
Because the next thing you see is discussion of review and evaluation process. And one thing we want to talk about is brainstorming among this group about, okay, should we put something in the measure like a midterm review or evaluation process to improve effectiveness of the measure, but also to improve voter confidence in the measure. So I was thinking we could have that conversation next, but the answer is yes. And Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, most jurisdictions, self-help counties do have a midterm review process.
Yeah, more recent measures have taken on, especially as the popularity of 30-year measures have occurred. We've seen essentially all measures now have this review. When it was a shorter measure, we didn't really see a mandated review period, but now we are seeing it more and more, especially with the longer 30-year measures.
Yeah, go ahead.
Amador. Now, the first one that failed, it was 30-year, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 2022 measure was a 30-year.
And there's been studies that the shorter ones actually pass.
I think actually the more recent trend has been the 30-year measures in other counties throughout California. Obviously, in Fresno's example, it did not pass, but other more recent sales tax measures in Sonoma County, Napa County, in Southern California, they have been 30-year measures and they have passed.
Just for historical reference, I was on the 2022 Measure C group, and the steering committee did vote unanimously for a 30-year measure. So when that was brought up to the steering committee.
So I had this question already, but now I'm wondering in the context of the 30-year measures that have successfully passed, what has been put in place to reassure the public that when changes are made, that the public is notified and maybe even can give input on those changes being made, just to build trust in a 30-year measure?
Sure. Yeah. So there is, and a lot of the guidelines that are developed with these other measures, they lay out the review process, and that includes public hearings, other mandated review periods of that. It would go, to a jurisdictional body that would then hold the hearing and allow for public comment as well, likely COG or some other, the entity that would, kind of manage the measure. So yeah, that would all be, and those would actually be developed in the implementing guidelines as well. That would be detailed for all
Right.
your review.
Right, that's kind of the how and the who and all the rest of it would be the implementation guidelines. Nick, question?
In addition to the mid-cycle review period, and I upward 10 and 20 years, question arises to amendments.
Yes, amendment.
This current 20-year each period, there have been, I think, 8 or 9 amendments.
I'm sorry, you might have to lean forward.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, just for clarification, I think the committee's gonna do whatever they want. It's asking a lot to decide these details about a review process. What I thought we'd talk about today is simply, should there be a review process? And there seems to be a consensus along that issue. The details of that review process are for the implementation guidelines. What kind of committees we have, what authority do they have, what does it take to change things? That's all for implementation guidelines. The only question today is, should there be a review and evaluation process? And I seem to hear consensus along those lines. We could vote on that today, or what might make some sense, we could vote on it first thing next meeting. And today we could we're running a little behind. I may have to indulge people and stay for a little longer, but maybe we could spend 15 minutes brainstorming what kinds of things would you want to see in a review and evaluation process. I mean, the obvious one is a midterm review, all right? Well, now Nick's saying, well, not if it's a 30-year measure, not midterm, maybe 10, 20, right? 2 reviews. So I thought maybe to use this wisdom around this table, ask you people, what do you think? I mean, and maybe that could be the conversation after we decide on 20 versus 30, but I hope I can put people's minds at ease, because I think we can hear the conversation here. Large support for some kind of review and evaluation process. So anyway, that's the way I'm reading the room, but
Mark,
Go ahead.
I want to add to that too.
sure.
I think it's too early to vote on 2032. I know when I was working with our community, a lot of the conversation, 2030, they didn't see the difference. They were really focused on like accountability measures, evaluations, and how do you make adjustments? Maybe it's 5 years, 10 years, every 5 years, right? 20 to 30 didn't make a difference to that community. I still think it's I'm looking at the rest of the agenda, and there's other things that we're being briefed on, the comparison of self-help measures. I think maybe even a vote next meeting after we kind of go through all these other resources we're about to get and things we're
Okay.
about to hear.
Well, we had a motion and 2 seconds on this, so we would put it up for a vote at this point. But your point is well taken. Larry, you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the question that you asked us, whether it was the 20 or the 30 year. And at least from my perspective, the 30 year is and sir, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but you had said the last polling was there was a voter preference for 30 years. I just want to make sure I understood that correctly. So the 30 years makes all the sense in the world to me, and that's what I would be supportive of. When you do a shorter time frame, your ability to bond against that revenue stream means it's much shorter, obviously 30% shorter, 33% shorter, but it also means your borrowing costs are much higher. So for major projects, that extra 33% means we will get more road, we will get more bang if the jurisdiction, the city decides, or the county or whomever it is, decides they want to bond against that. So yeah, I definitely think 30% or 30 years is the way to go. And it sounds like that's what the voters are willing to support. So thank you.
Okay, yes.
I just want to know, I didn't know that there was a motion for that.
I thought there was Amber, I th-
There was no motion to.
Gosh
move
darn
forward
it.
With this.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, the other motion, I thought we were talking, we had the 2 seconds, we're talking, having a discussion at this point. Okay, does someone want to make a motion for a vote on 20 versus 30?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we go with 30 years.
Well, I think the vote is going to be 20 versus, I'm sorry. How do you want to do this? I'm sorry, you going to say something? Okay, fine.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Trying to control this is, I'm not doing a good job here.
Can I finish my thought then?
Sure, please.
Can I make a motion that we hold off on voting 20
Okay.
versus 30 until our next meeting?
Okay, we need 2 seconds for that to go to a vote.
Motion for a second.
Okay, we need a second.
Evelyn, I'll second that.
Okay, so we put that up for a vote. Is it easier just to do a show of hands at this point? Okay, let's just do a show of hands to hold off the 20 versus 30 decision until next meeting.
Do we have a chance to discuss the motion?
Sure, we can discuss, if there's more discussion, sure, before you vote.
Right.
Go ahead, discuss.
I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what the rationale was for putting off the vote.
Mark, you know, we're discussing this and I'm hearing from the people out there, I'm not going to vote for another 30-year. So I'm just going by what the people tell me. You know, that's what I'm here for. The mayor of Mendota signed me to hear things out, you know, what's out there in the air. And I'm hearing, no, not a 30. So God bless you guys. I mean, if it passes, yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other follow up on that? Sure, go ahead.
I think you can explain it better, but I think it's that we are going to be listening to presentations and receiving information that we can use to better, you know, vote on that 20 versus the 30, and not only based on the money.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know. Is the green button? There you go.
There it is. Okay. I think that there's much concern about the kind of community input that will be allowed during the course of the measure, and that amendments, you know, are very casually, you know, we're going to move money from here to there, but I think there'll be much greater decisions as the 30 years or 20 years even go by. And I think that setting up some sort of parameter, some way of evaluating based on the guiding principles is really what needs to happen before a decision can be made on the length of the measure.
I do think, I would say that they're 2 separate questions. But your second question is very important, and I think that's unanimous. It sounds to me that a review and evaluation process has to occur, frankly, whether it's a 20 or 30-year measure. The question is the devil's in the details. I mean, what kind of committee you're going to have, what authority do they have? But that is all for implementation guidelines. That's a separate question. And a very legitimate question that's going to get a lot of discussion, no doubt. But the first question is 20 versus 30. And before that, the first question is, do we vote on 20 versus 30? Because that has a motion in 2 seconds. So let's take a vote on whether or not people want to hold off till next time to vote on 20 versus 30. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. We need 19 votes to get this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I count 17. I'm sorry, let's try that again. I'll make sure I get this right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. 7. I think I did. You know what? Let's just count off. Who raise your hand and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 18. We need 19 votes to pass, so it does not pass. All right, so let's go to Larry's motion.
Well, I'll make a motion. I don't think I made one yet. So
Okay, go ahead.
we go ahead and recommend that it be a 30-year measure.
Okay, that's the motion.
I think it's just that simple. So.
Okay, and so we need 2 seconds for a vote on this.
This is Chuck. I'll second.
Okay, so we have 2 seconds on this. Same thing, let's just count off the vote so I don't mess this up. So all those in favor of voting on a 30-year measure, this is just the question of whether we should vote on a 30-year measure, not, or are we saying that we're approving the 30-year measure? Make it a 30-year measure? Okay, so that's the question is,
I think that was
I'm sorry.
the recommendation.
okay,
to
yes,
make.
I'm sorry, my mistake. Whether this should be a 30-year measure, a vote, those are all those in favor, please raise your hand and also count off so we get the right number. Do we have anyone supporting this is a 30-year measure today, making that vote today? And well, is there discussion? Is there more discussion? Go ahead.
I'd like to revise the what do you call it, the proposal to change the, instead of vote for yes or no on a 30-year measure, vote either 30-year or 20-year measure and simplify the vote. There'd be one less vote to vote on. Am I not understanding that right?
I think right now, it seems to me, unless I'm misunderstanding it, let's just take a vote on whether there's support for a 30-year measure at a 70% approval rate. And if it's not, we don't have it. If it is, then it would be approved.
Proposal.
Did Larry get 2 seconds?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
My
sorry.
question is when would he vote for the 20-year measure then?
No, because
Well, if you want the 20, then I guess you would not vote for the 30.
Okay,
Right.
that's why I'm clarifying this one.
Yeah, yes. So are there any other discussion? I know, but we'll just raise hands. Is there any other discussion about a 30-year measure?
Is there anyone
Question.
online that would like to speak?
We have someone here at the table first, and then we'll get online. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that I like the idea. I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think we need, I was gonna be ready to vote for a 30-year measure, but I think without knowing what would be the process to evaluate it and all that, I don't feel comfortable doing it.
Well, we do have to make the decision. I understand how you're putting those two together, but that really does, to me, I understand your point. It is a difficult thing to kind of separate those Christmas lights. But anyway, yeah, please.
Yeah, we're being asked, do you want 20 years or 30 years? And the question would be 20 years or 30 years of what? So if we don't know what the measure is, but we know what the letter is, but we don't know what the letter means. Like what is Measure C? And so 20 or 30 years of what would be helpful?
Well, here's my question. We have to decide on 20 versus 30, because when you go forward and do the allocations, you got to know what money you're talking about. And the issue is that some people are not comfortable going forward with 20 or 30 unless they know the implementation guidelines. How is it going to be enforced? So we may have to pull that one thing of implementation guidelines out and deal with that with 20 and 30 and deal with all the rest of the implementation guidelines separately, right? Does that make sense to folks? So we'll have maybe we need to have a conversation around that. What does COG staff feel about that?
We have
I'm
two
sorry.
online.
Hey, can I ask if it's all right, ask Paul, just answer the question, then we'll ask your question. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
I think we can delay. Originally, we had this set up as the vote was going to be 30 versus 20 and to get a temperature of the room to see how people landed on the two different lengths of measure. I think this could be something that we can definitely delay. I think to Mark's point, there is revenue implications, right? How much actual funding would be available will be different between a 20 and 30-year measure. So the amount of what the measure can actually buy you would be different in those two scenarios. So I think that is why we structured it this way. But I mean, I hear there is a lot of reservation in the room. So yes.
Esmeralda?
No, I don't speak that often, but I think it will help me to understand better if I can hear the more presentations from the people that are here to see how I'm going to vote. See the difference between exactly the 20 and 30 years, because it's exactly what one of the other members are saying. I don't understand it that clear. And I don't want to go blind to voting.
Understood. Larry, it was your motion. Do you want to withdraw that motion and let conversation, or what do you want to do?
Well, just a couple thoughts on it. So I voted to put it off with the group that wanted to put it off for a month. I'm okay. I think we want to try to get a consensus, and there's certainly a lot of questions and concerns about the 30 years. So I don't know that I like the binary, we've got to do it today kind of thing.
Okay.
I think we've got to put the cart back in front of the horse maybe, and if we had the discussion about what the voter confidence and improvements would be, or I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right, but the assessment and evaluation, that's at 15 years or 10 years, I think folks would feel better probably knowing, although I do think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, so even if we voted whether it was 20 or 30 today, all those are still on the table, all of the evaluation, implementation.
Oh, absolutely,
practice.
absolutely.
So nothing's precluded by
Absolutely.
doing that. But yeah, and I would go ahead and withdraw my motion
Okay.
on that, but with the idea that we can talk about that first and hear some more from staff maybe. I know Scott Mosier's here, who I really liked working with for the city of Fresno. And maybe he can talk about the 30-year versus 20-year and what kind of difference that makes. Anyway, just a thought.
Veronica, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing one that there's one component of the 20 versus 30 year is the accountability component, and what right now there is no trust in government or elected officials, regardless of whatever party you're in. There is no trust, and so that's one thing. The review period, what exactly entails a review period, is really critical. Is it like the current process and the current measure? Then I would say that's not sufficient and would not at all help with voter trust and confidence. So that's one thing. The other thing I think I heard Pastor Simon talk about is what is in the measure. So if I could just maybe make a friendly suggestion to the staff, and maybe this would help all of us, is that as we go into next week's meeting where we start talking about allocations, that we also have a chart that looks at, this is what a 20-year measure buys you, and this is what a 30-year measure buys you. And then that starts giving everybody the information that they need to make a more informed decision, in addition to the presentations that will be shared today.
Yeah, that sounds very helpful, frankly. I should be weighing in, but it sounds very helpful. Any other comments?
Just, I have
Go
one
ahead
more.
and then
In all fairness and all due respect to Larry, but I thought I saw an actual vote taken, and it didn't look like we're going to get the 19, with all due respect to Larry's motion and second and so
Well-
forth. And we should have that on record.
Well, we could
because
do this.
We're talking openly, and we want the public's trust. We do
we
definitely.
could do this. We could take a poll, not a vote, just to kind of gauge the room. The question though is, it's really kind of in some ways answering in the dark to your point that you might want 30, but it depends. It depends on the implementation guidelines. So when you vote for 30, what are you voting for? And that might be confusing to people. So I think it would be a confusing vote because people might vote no for 30 just because they don't have the implementation guidelines. Not that they're opposed to it, but they want to hear the details.
Yeah,
Just-
and
just
I
to
just,
clarify, it's
and
not
I'll
just-
just
hold on.
amend deep because,
Go ahead.
she missed it by what, one vote? But again, we're here to discuss this. When a former employee of Caltrans tells me, I drove through your city the other day, it's the worst roads in the county. That hurts me. That hurts me. I was born in Mendota. I want the best for Mendota. And so we need to discuss this openly and let's talk.
Okay.
Like grown-up
It
men
sounds to
and
me
women.
that we should probably table this. Yes.
Exactly.
We have two online.
I'm
that would
sorry.
like to
One
speak.
one of the online people get their questions in too.
Chuck?
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right?
No.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear each other.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for a 30. I think we gotta lock something down. I don't know how much of this is cast in stone, but I think 30 years, I like a midterm review. I think the 30 years gives us the 10 and 20 look into. I don't think it hinders us in any way to vote today on a 30-year measure. I kind of agree with the other gentleman, when we didn't get to the 70%, now we're gonna start tabling stuff until we do. When is this process going to stop? I mean, there was a motion made. It had 2 seconds. I'm willing to vote for a 30-year measure. Let's at least get something in the books and done. Again, if we don't like where the midterm reviews and all of that stuff comes in, I mean, how much of this is going to be in stone anyway? We can always revise, but at least a 30-year gives us some solid starting point.
I could just say this, that first I'm a little concerned about voting now, given some of what I hear in the room, but if you did vote for a 30, it would put tremendous pressure on how those implementation guidelines, because that still also has to be agreed to. Just because you say 30 doesn't mean it's a done deal. the devil's in the details. How is that 30 going to look? And that's implementation guidelines. And if you say 30, it's going to put a lot of pressure. I think a lot of people that we're really going to look at that very, very closely, which is totally fair, obviously. But one of the issues, and I think Chuck who was just mentioned this, is that, and again, chicken and egg kind of thing, but to get to the general allocations, we have to know what money we're talking about. I think Veronica did make a very good point about showing side by side. What does a 20-year get you? What does a 30-year get you? But just for Chuck's benefit, Larry did withdraw his motion. So at this point, we don't have a motion on that. And right now, what I'm hearing is, let's do what is suggested in terms of 20 versus 30, the number, so it's very clear to people, and then vote on it next time. That's what I'm hearing. There was a second person online that wanted to comment?
Wendy?
Hi, everyone. I like
Hi, Wendy.
Veronica's statement about the numbers being, what do we get for 20 years versus the 30 years? I do like that, but I'm still weighing on the side of a 30-year measure. I know there's a lot of questions in regards to the details and trying to understand it. And I wrote some things down if you don't mind if I share that.
Go ahead.
Okay. So with the 20-year measure, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I got a little help because I was typing some stuff into AI just to try to I love AI. It just kind of narrows things down. So in layman terms, so for a 20-year measure, the plan would provide, and this is just off the cuff, flexibility, ensuring that projects reflect current community needs and priorities. It also allows voters to reassess and update funding sooner, keeping pace with new technologies, environmental goals, and changing transportational demands. However, with the 30-year, and it doesn't mean that you can't put your own implementation in there in the 30-year measure, but it secures long-term stable funding, which enables larger scale projects, lower financing costs through long-term bonds, and greater certainty for regional planning. It allows Fresno County communities to commit to transformative improvements with consistent funding. And I just made a side note, 10 years, I mean, yeah, it seems like a long time, but really in the grand scheme, it's like 20 and 30, it's not that much, like a 10-year gap. But as long as we keep communication, keep a pulse through the measures admin, and keeping that transparency, like the communication with the community and keeping the transparency for current real-time transportational needs. So we could implement that in the 30-year.
Right. I have the unfortunate task of trying to keep you guys on task, and we're going way over. So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, can we just table this, try to get the information that Veronica suggested, and we can take a vote on this next time? I don't want the committee to feel rushed into a decision, and I understand this is kind of, I was going to use the word funky issue in the sense that implementation guidelines on a 30-year measure is very important, and I get that, but we can't get to the general allocations until we know what money we're dealing with. So it's kind of it's somewhat problematic, but I think we can deal with that next time. Does the steering committee feel comfortable with tabling this till next time and getting the additional information that's been requested? And then we can make a decision at the next meeting. Does that sound okay? Is anybody opposed to that? No?
I'm good. I'm good with that for next time.
No, go ahead.
Seems like we're drawing this on and on and on. In one of our previous meetings that we had, they had a slide presentation on what the 30 versus the 20 year, the amount of revenue that was brought in. We had this gentleman explain it 2 meetings ago when some of us stayed in for the meeting, some of us left. And we had explained to him just now the revenue base for between the 20 and 30 year. And we've had since May, whatever, to talk to our constituents that, hey, this is what we're doing to get the public buy-in. what they want out of this measure. So I don't understand what a delay is going to do other than just drag this committee on another longer extended period of time.
The only concern that I have, as I said, some people may support 30, but they want to know what's in the implementation guidelines. So you're going to get a confused vote, which frankly will be then shared with the press, and they'll say that people don't support something when they actually do support something. So it sends a very confusing message. I would rather have a unified message coming from this group. And I get the frustration, and we do have, I did this hopefully sequentially because I thought the 2030, we know the numbers, because then we could do the allocations, and then we do I want to stress this, the implementation guidelines are all part of this. You can say general categories and stuff, but that's frankly where the rubber really hits the road. And one last final point, this committee is making a recommendation. You aren't writing the ballot measure. You are making a recommendation that has to be approved by the COG board, has to be approved by the Board of Supervisors, and all these other groups. So you got to stay in your lane, basically. You can't go so far off the field that it's not going to pass. Well, you could do whatever you want, but it's not helpful because then they won't take you seriously. So there is a constraint, just like they have a constraint that they can't ask a steering committee for a recommendation and ignore it. So it's everybody's kind of constrained to be reasonable. And I'm just, given what's been said, I'm just uncomfortable. I don't want people feeling like they're pushed into something. I'd rather you have to be comfortable with a decision. I totally get the point, but anyway, that's the way I'm reading the room. If I'm wrong, correct me. If you want to take a vote on that, that's fine, whatever you guys want to do.
I was gonna suggest that. I think it's just one person that is not like happy with what we want to do. If that person, prefers a vote, we can do the vote. I mean.
Okay, let's do the vote. You want to make a motion? Oh, Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Larry, this is your first meeting. You're only allowed 3 questions.
Sorry, old habits die hard. My suggestion would be, as a matter of fact, I'm going to make a motion. I don't know if I'll get a double second or
Okay.
not. I've never had to do double seconds before, but I would like to table this 2030 issue until the next meeting, and that would be brought back. But before it's brought back, we discuss and make some sort of decision on the review process of the measure next time. So whether it's going to be at the 15-year mark or the 10-year mark or the whatever, and I don't know what staff would recommend, but let's have that discussion first.
Would you mind a friendly suggestion? Can we just bifurcate this? Let's say, first of all, let's table this 2030 issue, at least till next week. Can we just do that issue first?
Can you add what Veronica's recommendation of?
Yeah, well, yes, it's understood that Veronica's recommendation would be something that the COG staff would attempt to do. But first, let's can we just move this forward and say, let's table this until next week, the 2030 decision. That's the first thing. We would need if that's a friendly amendment for your motion.
That's fine. The point I wanted to get to, Mark, was I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the room, and there particularly, as Ms. Garibay said, there's not a lot of trust out there. And so if we're going to ask the voters to either approve 20 or 30, we should assure them that there's some trust measures put in place first.
We can address both of those issues next time. So when we talk about next time, 20 versus 30, one of the things that we can do, unless you want to have another meeting, maybe this is an email correspondence of going to COG staff and making recommendations, getting I think it should be this, not just review and evaluation. Maybe there's something else that should be part of the process. So what I want to do, which we're running out of time today, because we still have to hear from the experts on roads and public transportation, maybe we can do is say, listen, let's table the 20 versus 30 for now. Let's have some conversation online or to COG staff saying, we think this should be part of the implementation guidelines for a 30 or 20-year measure, and start that conversation. Then we deal with that next week, first thing. Okay? That might be, so I don't know if I can't make a motion, only you can. So
Mark, that's fine with me. I don't know how it is with the rest of the committee, but tabling it, allowing for, but I'd like to have that discussion first. Come back first before we're forced into.
Can you just
30
summarize
or 20.
your motion so we can vote?
go ahead.
Well, I had a attempted friendly amendment to the motion.
Well, the 30, we're going to put these things off. Can I just say, correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to put this discussion of 2030 versus off until next week with the understanding that there'll be discussion as well simultaneously about the implementation guidelines over the length of the measure.
Well, the guidelines, that's too broad, Mark.
Okay.
Let's have discussion about accountability and review and evaluation. I'd like to have that, I think we'd like to have that first.
I think we're saying the same thing because I would say accountability would be part of the implementation guidelines. But again, if you want to make that more specific, that's fine.
Right.
I think
I'm sorry, maybe I don't know what the evaluation guidelines are, but at least a general discussion about that and give direction.
Well, I tried and failed, so you make your own motion and go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So that we tabled this matter till next month or next meeting, whenever that is, next week. Oh, next week. And that prior to having the 2030 vote, that we discuss the review and evaluation process and decide, make a recommendation on that prior to the 2030.
Okay.
That we include,
Let him get his motion.
that we include the information.
I think we got it. I think we got it.
Okay.
We got a second. Do we have a second? Okay. State your name for the record so we have it.
Joseph Amador,
Okay, so we're gonna raise our hands and just count off 1, 2, 3, 4, so we know who wants to do that, who approves this motion. And just start one. State name, just say number 2, so we just go down. 2. 6, 7, 8, 9,
10,
11.
12, 13, 14, 15,
18, 19. There you go. Exclamation point. Okay, so we're gonna do it as suggested, and we can move on. What I would ask you to do. Oh yes, online 2 votes there as well. Okay, so it was 23 votes, 22, 20. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we're gonna move forward. We're gonna have to have that conversation because next week's meeting, we wanted to get to general allocations, but I get the point. We're gonna start first with the 2030 discussion. But even before that, we're gonna talk about the implementation guidelines around a 2030 measure. So we need to start the conversation online and get that information maybe to COG staff, and maybe COG staff can summarize what you're hearing from the steering committee and then send it back out. So when we meet next week, we're all kind of educated. We all kind of have an idea, and I can figure out probably poorly on how to do a vote on that. But I'll do my best. Okay. So you guys are just giving yourself homework. Congratulations. Start using that brain power and come up with ideas. Let's move on because we're running a little behind here to briefing on roads. So we're going to start with, I don't know if the city of Fresno starting first. Scott, are you up? So we were talking before about how to maintain the current situation. But one thing we figured we hadn't really talked about is how do we make it more than just maintaining the current situation? So we wanted to get some ideas, some concepts from city staff and county staff, technical experts about what it would take. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to be here with you. My name is Scott Mosier, serve as Public Works Director for the City of Fresno. And as Mark introduced the topic, what dollars are available? Where do those go? How are projects selected? What's Measure C's role in that? So let's see. All right. My clicker is not working here yet.
While we wait, a question for staff. Do we have printouts of this presentation? Online? Not right now. Okay.
All right. We can always do it the old fashioned way, right? Okay, very good. And my goal is absolutely. My goal is to be brief here. So a little bit just about what is within Public Works. Our agency, 350 employees altogether, as noted here, an $89.6 million operating budget, $412 million in capital. That sounds like a lot. Say, wait, hey, we can fix our whole road problem here, but there's a lot more to the operation in Public Works than just repaving. So for us, just quickly, that includes street maintenance, traffic signals, street light maintenance, landscape maintenance, traffic operations, transportation planning, our engineering services, and sustainability. Rose, next slide, please. So a little bit then about those areas. All right, we'll queue up the next slide here. All right, so what is street maintenance? Of course, everyone thinks first typically about repaving, but of course it's pothole repair, slurry, the preventive maintenance work, restriping. You'll see what kind of money we have to spend just on repainting, restriping, pavement markings, emergency storm response, signage, the traffic signals and lighting, street sweeping, and then of course concrete repairs. That will vary by agency a little bit. I think when you hear from the county, you'll hear a lot more about roads, culverts and things like that. Less, of course, in the rural area, less concrete, but in an urban environment, repair of curbs, gutters, and sidewalks is that's another area backlog for us. Landscape maintenance, and there's a lot of information, apologies on small print, but big areas, the urban forest, of course, is very significant. Tree trimming, removals and care, tree planting, median islands, trail maintenance, very significant, including for us, the San Joaquin River Parkway through Measure P, and then community facilities districts. One thing I want to note here, those are special maintenance districts formed, and those are additional property taxes. So those are above and beyond standard property tax. Some in this room may live in a neighborhood where they have some type of special assessment. Community facilities districts fund things from the attractive landscape around the neighborhood to, in the past few years, City of Fresno has done neighborhood slurry seals funded exclusively by those CFD special taxes. Why is that? We recognized due to the amount of deferred maintenance and the lack of funding sources like the general fund, gas tax, even with Measure C, to take on maintenance of all these new facilities. So I wanted to emphasize this. What's the City of Fresno doing about that? We give developers a choice, either form a homeowners association where, right, they're private streets, they're on their own, or annex into the CFD for maintenance that way. So that's a key point. Next slide. Also within Public Works, and significant for Measure C, traffic and engineering services, things ranging from the transportation planning functions, active transportation program, bike lanes, trails, sidewalk, gap filling, school safety, to traffic operations, work to install new stop signs or assess where those are needed. In school areas, setting of speed limits, traffic calming, neighborhood traffic calming programs, our intelligent transportation system to use smart technology to interconnect, and of course to operate the traffic operations center. And we'll definitely have time for questions at the end. Next slide. Thank you, Paul. Also briefly, just within our area of responsibility operations, sustainability, energy savings, things like LED conversions, solar projects, and graffiti abatement, 7-day-a-week response team to graffiti citywide. Next slide. So that's an overview. Of course, a big focus here is pavement management. I've noted some points here. I know the steering committee's already heard presentations and had information from outside consultant, pavement management update, but it's really assessment, prioritizing the work to make those public dollars go as far as possible, selecting the right treatment, and using the limited budgetary resources to really lift the entire system as much as we can. Next slide. Of course, just a refresher on PCI. We talked about a goal of 70 or higher. That's in the bottom of the good to very good range. A brand new street is 100. When we repave it and do a proper treatment, we get back to 100 as a pavement condition index. 50 to 70 is fair. Typically, that means it's ready for milling and repaving. And then, of course, lower down, 25 to 50 being poor.
Scott, can I interrupt for just 1 second? What is the city of Fresno's PCI?
So that's a good question. We have some new analysis from the consultant NCE. We're all looking at that together. We had a 2021, you'll see in the next slide, actually, if we can go to that, Paul. This was our 2021 assessment performed by the same firm, and that had our network average at a 60. So our average street in the city of Fresno in fair condition, also known as at risk. So our average street being one that needs to be repaved, not in the good range. So, and then there's a pie chart there that showed in that survey what's the distribution of streets in different categories. Green, in the good range, you know, about is split about a third fair, and then a third being poor. Didn't include a slide on it, but we also had the firm do a, because this is kind of a classic Fresno discussion, north of Shaw, south of Shaw. We're very kind of not surprised, but it was very affirming to note. So the outside consultant rated that and found north of Shaw, our average was a 59, south of Shaw was a 60. So and that's the asphalt rating. That doesn't mean what the median islands look like, how much landscaping is there, do they have good shade canopy, what do the buildings look like? That's not what it is, it's what's the pavement like. So we have a number of older neighborhoods north of Shaw that have never seen any treatment since they were built in the early 70s. And then Prop 13 happened and general fund revenues went away. So some of those are actually our worst as far as the asphalt condition in the city. But here's a map on the next slide, if we can go to that. We color coded that. Of course, we had the consultant do that work back about 4 years ago. And so the green being in good condition, and you can see a lot of the green right at the edge of the city, whether we're talking southeast, west of 99, northeast, northwest Fresno. So the newest ones being new, blue in that fair range, 50 to 69. Where were the yellows that are in poor condition? They're kind of scattered around quite a bit in the Shaw to Herndon area. That when I mentioned north of Shaw to Herndon had a lot of older neighborhoods, no maintenance districts that are in the yellow. And we have some older neighborhoods that sometimes surprises folks to know, you know, in areas like the Tower District. The city of Fresno, we're doing slurry seal in the Tower District. Those streets, although old, the pavement is not that old. They had a good solid foundation such that low-cost preventative maintenance can keep on happening. So one message I know the consultant has shared before is, you know, good streets cost less to maintain. Next slide. These were the projections that we received and presented to our council in early 2022. So what that shows, the red line, the thin line, was the PCI, and we were at a 60. And based upon the city of Fresno's average $12 million investment in actual paving projects a year, what would happen? And in 10 years, the projection was our PCI would drop to 43 with that level of investment just to really tread water and hold it steady. We were needing to add over 30 million a year in investments. And then to actually lift the PCI up to 70 was going to require an extra 50 million per year to our 12. So the red, the bar graph shows the amount of deferred maintenance. And what that means is really what is the amount of kind of one-time money that would have to be injected to then achieve the goal? How far are we below getting to that PCI goal? So back in 2021, that number was 505 million. This projection assumed kind of a typical 4 or 5% construction cost increase. Meanwhile, you've heard as a steering committee, And I just want to reaffirm, repaving costs have dramatically increased. In 4 years, we've seen our bids go up over 60% on project costs from the contractors. Next slide. All right, so current funding level, based upon current prices, our deferred maintenance is now estimated at $1.2 billion just on roads. We have another on top of that, tree damage, curbs, gutters, sidewalks is roughly 300 million. So we're closer to 1.5 billion. Next slide. Really quickly, I know Mayor Dyer has mentioned this before. So City of Fresno has opted, our council has approved a measure borrowing against the general fund. We have an existing bond for other purposes that rolls off in 2029. The Pay More Now bond will take up that debt service kind of capacity and be repaid over quite a number of years. Gives us a one-time shot of $100 million for about 40 to 50 miles of repaving in the city. But that's really just a one-time shot. That's general fund going out 20, 30 years in the future. So that's not something that's that the city can keep redoing, issuing another bond like that. Next slide. So all told, quick recap funding sources. We're looking at, for asphalt, 1.2 billion in deferred maintenance. Typical range, depending upon the economy, sales tax, or revenues. Grants received 12 to 20 million in annual funds. If you do the math, divide one by the other, you see, wow, we're somewhere between 60 to 100 years of deferred maintenance projects. And it'd be nice if streets never degraded or decayed, but they keep going down and they keep needing more investment. Next slide. So where does the money go? Here's quickly a snapshot. You've heard mention about other sources than Measure C, original gas tax, Prop 111 special gas tax. Those two are each 9 cents a gallon on fuel, and then ABX 86. So all told, those three funds for City of Fresno, they generate 17.9 million a year. That'd be wonderful if we could put that all into paving, but what you'll notice on this list, these three funding sources actually have zero expenditures in repaving, in straight up, let's go grind off, layer, and let's repave. Well, why? Because there are all the other things that we have to do as an agency. Maintain, traffic signal and streetlight maintenance is 8.5 million of gas tax revenues for our 43,000 streetlights and over 500 signals. You can see emergency streets, concrete strike team, just traffic sign repair and replacements, 2.2 million a year of revenue for stop signs, speed limit signs, everything else. Every weekend, numerous numbers are knocked down. Median Island maintenance itself, 0.9 million. So we do use some for grant match. Next slide. Sure.
You're saying that 17.9 is paid for from the original gas tax, Prop 111, but those are all taken care of. So they're off the table,
They're
right?
correct. Just so, because those are real dollars. And
So-
do they help with?
They don't address specifically the payment issue. That's Measure C, the way I
That-
understand.
That's right. Yeah, and we'll get just a couple more slides. SB1 gas tax and the increased vehicle license fee registration for Fresno generates 14.3 million. Okay, now we see some paving in here. 6.1 million of paving and concrete work. We use 3.9 million of grant matches. So this year we're very fortunate. We have about 15 million of federal paving project grants that have come in, are now being delivered. Then also matches for things like traffic and school safety projects. Our council's also utilized 3.5 million of those funds for a couple traffic signals and some hawks for pedestrian crossings near schools. Next slide. And finally, Measure C. So again, Measure C has been a critical resource for us. You can see City of Fresno uses a lot of the traditional gas tax funds to take care of those things you just got to do. We don't have a choice to not repaint crosswalks or not fill potholes. Measure C, so out of the 7.3 million revenue this year, you can see a mix of paving, overlay, slurry seal, restriping cost us 1.5 million to restripe our roadways with paving and other operations. Then pothole program, this plus the other gas tax funds makes up a $2 million pothole program. The flexible funds, again, those.
I'm sorry, I thought I saw striping on the other slide.
You saw signage, so traffic sign repair replacement.
Okay.
Yes. So Measure C does fund restriping, repainting of roadways for that maintenance. On our flexible program, those dollars are available for paving, but they're available for any transportation purpose. So capital program and the grant matches for things like traffic signals, for bike lanes, for intelligent transportation system, our great air quality, traffic synchronization project grants we've obtained. So that's about 4 million a year of that. Cost us 2 million a year to operate the 500 traffic signals, maintain signal timing, replace the controllers when they fail, do all that work, and then some work for safety improvements. So, and next slide.
Scott, we're running a little late, so
Sure.
do you have
Yep.
how many more slides do we have here?
This is the last one.
Oh, there you go.
So, so we're challenged on the maintenance side, but I do want to emphasize Measure C does tremendous things with capital. So we have 86 million in the budget, and that's leveraging a lot of projects. So things like regional project tier 1 funding, that's enhancing these roadways, like Peach, Cesar Chavez Boulevard, Herndon Avenue. The Trails program, we have 5.2 million matching, almost 20 million of grants for the Midtown Trail grant projects, and 50 million for the Blackstone McKinley grade separation. So a lot of great things happening with Measure C, but there's not as much available there or in other programs for strict repaving. And thus we wind up with a pretty big shortfall, and we're falling further and further behind. So.
Thank you, Scott. What I think we should do now is we should hear from the county. So we have this, what I'd like to do is, it's on video, right? So you guys can go back and review everything that Scott said, but I also want the county to come up and talk about what their situations are. That way, at least we have it on record, so you guys can go back and review this at some later date if you need to. So go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Mohammed Alimi, I'm design engineer with the Fresno County Public Works Department. So I'm here to give you a short overview of our transportation system and what our needs are. So as you can see in the slide, Fresno County has more mileage than any county in California. We have over 3,470 miles of roads that spans the whole region from the Sierra foothills all the way on the west side to Mendota. So the need varies quite a bit, and just like Scott mentioned, our funding has kind of declined over the past few years, but the cost to maintain these road systems has increased significantly. So the shortfall to be able to improve the roadway systems just keeps increasing. And Measure C has been very instrumental in helping us to close that gap. Fresno County, in the unincorporated areas, we only have like 177,000 people live, but the connectivity to connect these smaller cities together is there. And our roadways, we have a lot of truck traffic because we're an ag county that destroys these pavements, So the way the gas tax and Measure C allocations are calculated, I'll show you in the slides later on, really does not address this shortfall. So can we go to the next slide? So we try to do our best with what we have, and we try to prioritize our projects so that we get the best bang for the buck, if you will. We use a lot of our revenues to leverage with federal funds and state funds so that we can do more with less. We have actually added a new paving machine. Now we have 2 paving machines, so we do a lot of day labor work with our own forces. This past year, we paved 66 miles with our own forces, and our target is to be able to pave at least 100 miles a year with our own forces, because that's the most cost-effective way to address the deferred maintenance. Next slide. So this slide shows basically a breakdown of our revenues. As you can see, more than half of our revenue comes from gas tax, from highway user tax, and SB1. As I mentioned, a lot of that goes toward basically local match for our federally funded projects, but all of our road maintenance and preservation treatments also come from that source. We have Measure C, which is almost 10% of our local total revenues at $9 million, but not all of that is used for pavement maintenance. Next slide. So gas tax, as I mentioned, they have a formula by the state that uses 75% of allocation is based on population, and 25% is based on roadway mileage. And that's why our share of the gas tax is not as significant as we would like it to be. Some smaller communities, as far as road miles, but with large population in Southern California, get significantly more from the state, than we do with the highest mileage in the state. Next slide. Same formula is also used for Measure C allocation. It's 75% based on population and 25% based on road miles, which really doesn't help us, again, close that gap as best as we could. Again, our PCI has increased and improved over the past few years, but still there's a lot of road miles that really need help, especially in smaller communities. This slide basically shows pavement degradation. So as you can see, going with a brand new pavement with a PCI of 100 down to a PCI of 60, it takes a good amount of life, but then the curve really declines rapidly as far as PCI. So going from PCI of 60 down to a PCI of about 30, it takes a very short amount of time. So the first 40% of the life or the quality of the pavement, the PCI, it takes almost 75% of the life. So if the life of the pavement is 20 years, you can see that the first 40% decline in the PCI takes 15 years, but the next another 40% of the PCI drop takes only like 5 years. So, and as far as the maintenance cost, when you are in the higher PCI, you can really do very small treatments as far as overlays and do some preservation treatment like slurry seals and chip seals at very low cost. But when you get down to the low PCI, then you have to reconstruct the road, which costs 4 or 5 times the amount of an overlay. So the sooner we can really address these maintenance problems, the cheaper it is for us. But again, the funding needs to be available. This shows basically the condition of our roads based on the different classifications. The worst roads that we have are local roads. that has a PCI of about 62. Major roads in the county are in very good condition. We try to, because of the high ADT and larger volume of traffic and higher cost to keep those roads operational, those roads get better attention.
The average PCI for the county is what?
66.
66, okay.
And this slide also shows the PCI based on the different classifications. So you can see the local road is actually 63. And that's the worst condition that we have between the different classifications. Next slide. And this shows the slight increase in our PCI condition, the average PCI. Over the past 5 years, we have really attempted to do more overlays with our day labor forces. We just last year added a new paving machine, and our target to be able to pave at least 100 miles per year. Right now, we're about 66 miles. And hopefully that would improve our PCI slightly, but again, we need more funding, to increase that PCI, average PCI to about 70, we need about 300 miles of poor condition roads to be paved, which requires about $600 million investment. That $600 million, obviously, even if it's given to us in one shot, we won't be able to pave that much roads, 300 miles in 1 year. It's gonna take time. So if we spend that money, let's say in 10 years or 20 years, then the life of even the road that was paved today is finished. So you have to go back to a square one. So it becomes like a catch-up kind of a game. You constantly have to be able to catch up. But the more we do every year, the sooner we can really help with this deferred maintenance issue.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm thinking, and since we're coming up against the clock a little bit, what I'd like to continue with is the presentations now going to public transportation, because I want to get this all on video, frankly, so you guys have a chance to review it. And perhaps if you have to leave, we can't get to Paul's discussion on what other self-help counties are doing. He can put that on video, and you can also be able to look at that later. And so the question then becomes, well, what about Q&A? I think I've solved that problem. What I'm thinking is, you guys are going to have homework once this thing is uploaded, and maybe we have until, doing the math here, if we're going to meet on the 18th, maybe you have all your questions in to COG staff by the 15th, which is a Monday, end of business Monday. So they have Tuesday to get the answers for you, and they put it together in one document. And so here are the questions we heard on roads, here's the questions we had on public transportation, and then get that information out to you, so you have that before the 18th. In addition, COG, I'm giving COG staff a lot of work. Yeah.
I want to add one thing. We do have Scott here and Mohammed here. It's not assured that we'll have them next week. I would like, if there is questions specifically for Scott and Mohammed and the staff that's here today, I can't assure that they'll be here next week. And so I would like to have the opportunity for them to ask questions.
All right, up to the committee. We can do what you want. I'm just trying to see if we can save time, because I'm trying to hold to the 5:30, which everybody seemed to be concerned about last time. Yes, go ahead.
This is for county. Some of the red.
I'm sorry, do you want to start asking questions?
Yes.
Okay, so before we get that, there's a question about, do we ask questions? Do we just get the presentations done, get them on record, and then ask questions? Or do we stop here and ask questions about roads? Because it will delay things. Unfortunately, I'm the one with the stop clock here. We've got 30 minutes left, and we haven't heard it all from public transportation. So would it be more helpful to the group? We have got 3 presentations on public transportation, and then 1 possibly from Paul on comparison with other jurisdictions. And I would also ask, since Paul put them on the spot, for Scott and Mohammed, would you be available to answer questions via email if questions come up specifically with your proposals over the next few days? So that handles that issue. I think we should get this on record, because there's a lot of information here and a chance. I don't know about you, I like to go back and review things a second or a third time to make sure I didn't miss anything. So I'd kind of like to get it on the record, if that's okay with you guys. Is that with your approval? Okay, let's keep going then. So next up, we're gonna do public transportation. I guess are we starting with the city of Fresno? I guess, yeah. Okay, so who wants to start? It doesn't matter. We have City of Clovis, City of Fresno, and FCTA. Why don't we start with, we'll start with Clovis.
Mark, can I ask a question real quick? Amber, over here.
Sorry.
Just to be sure, the Q&A, if we do it, not here, will that still be read into the record the next time we meet?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm sorry, another question for you. Yes, go ahead.
Are we allowing time for section 8 also?
I'm sorry, say that again?
There's after the presentations, we're talking about what's coming up next. I have questions about September 18.
Yes,
Okay.
that's changed a little bit now, given the fact that we're gonna have to talk about implementation guidelines on the 20 versus 30 on that date, not just go to discussions on general allocations. Was that your question?
I just wanted to know what polling we're supposed to start on September 18th and where that came from.
This has been a work in progress. We were going to talk about general allocations, I think, last meeting, and I got pushed back. So it's just a work in progress. And I will stress the word, and I actually did this, so I thought you might ask a question. The word tentative, underlined and italicized. This is tentative. So things may change with the 18th. And one of the things that's mentioned there also is a note that's saying we may have to have another meeting between the 18th and the 9th because we just got a lot to do. So that was always, that was in the last agenda too. So you've been notified of that. But let's get this on the record so we know what the information is from the City of Clovis, City of Fresno, and FCTA about public transportation. And if you have to leave and we can't get, and we still don't have Paul's presentation on comparisons, I'd like to get that on the record too. So just you can look at it at your leisure, football game commercial, go look at Measure C. I'm sure you do that. So with that, go ahead.
I know I like to mix my Monday Night Football up with Measure C, like
Now, who
everyone
does?
else, So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Hance. I'm the General Services Director for the City of Clovis, and I have the pleasure today to talk to you about Clovis Transit and what we do in the City of Clovis with Measure C. I do want to let you know at the end of our presentation, my name and phone number is there, along with my Deputy Director, Bethany Berube. Her phone number is also there. We absolutely welcome any questions. Call us if you have questions. You need a little bit more information. We're happy to provide that to you. I am going to fly through this.
Just one question. I think I don't know if this is okay, to centralize things, I think the question should go to COG staff, and then COG staff can contact you and ask for the answer, if that's all right.
I'm going to tell you, as a public employee, you can always reach out to me. It's easy to find me. I appreciate you.
The reason why I'm saying that is some other people on the committee might want to hear that information.
Okay.
And so this way we have one central source so everybody gets the same information. That's why I'm suggesting that.
Fine. That's great. Looking forward to hearing from everyone. Okay, so who are we in Clovis? Clovis Transit's been around since 1979. We're just getting ready to celebrate our 50th anniversary in a couple years. Looking forward to that. Our population, this is a number that's a little bit old, but it's from the last census. We're about 126,000 growing. Our sphere of influence, they're almost 40 miles and continuing to grow. And we also provide service into our Tarpey Village neighbor just to the south of us. We offer two styles of public transit. Our fixed route, which are the buses you see going around in circles, stopping at bus stops. And then our paratransit service, that's for our community members, for those who have a physical disability that disallows them from riding our regular bus service. We provide curb-to-curb service by reservation for those community members, and our services are free. You can go to the next slide. Oh, thank you. Oh, you already did. Okay. So Clovis Transit gets funding, like most transit operators, from a potpourri of funding sources. The major part of our funding comes from the Transportation Development Act. This is state funding through LTF and LTF and STA. Our TDA allocation does require our local match of 55%. And our Measure C funds provide our TDA local match requirements. We also participate in Measure C grant opportunities. Those are typically competitive grants. And through the years, we've received several grants that have helped us either with capital projects or pilot projects. We are a new federal recipient. This is new for Clovis Transit. We were able to avoid marrying the federal government when it comes to funding. As most of you in this room know, federal dollars are heavy. They're heavy, heavy dollars. and we put it off as long as we can. But with the state mandate for our conversion into zero emission bus fleet, we really do need those extra dollars to help us get across that finish line. All right, next, there we go. Okay, so operating costs, we're fairly simple. You're going to hear a lot more from my colleague Greg from FACTS. His bus system is a little bit more complicated, but we run our fixed route. Right now we have 2 fixed routes and 2 school runs that cost us about $4 million a year. Of that cost, Measure C covers off almost 50% of it. So for us, Measure C is very critical for our operating costs. Our ridership, I'm really pleased to say, is up past where we were in 2014. That doesn't really mean anything to you, but for the transit nerds in the room, that's a really big deal. We're back from COVID. We're more than excited to have our passengers back. And we are getting ready to debut some new routes in 2026 that we are really excited about and we know will attract more passengers. Our Roundup bus service, this is our paratransit style service for our disabled community members, costs us a little bit more. It's a curb-to-curb service. It's a shared ride service, but we don't have the ability to have 15 or 20 passengers on the bus at the time like we do our fixed route. So this is a little bit more expensive, almost $6 million, and our ridership is up at 10,000 people a month. Next, if you would. Okay. Oh, that's small print. I apologize for that. But we want to really emphasize what Measure C does for us. Measure C has been a critical funding source for Clovis Transit for many, many years. It supports our operational costs. It allows us to provide our service for free. We hold that near and dear to our heart. That is a way for us to provide transit service to everybody in our community. Just because you don't have a $1.25 in your pocket, we think you should still be able to get on the bus. I want to emphasize, though, a free fare system is not for every bus system. We are unusual that we're able to do that, mostly because of our size. We're able to implement that. Because we're able to do that doesn't mean anything for any of the other transit operators in our region. It just happens to work for our financial model. Our services we go well beyond a 3/4 mile requirement. We take our passengers from Clovis all the way into downtown Fresno for medical, for education, and for work opportunities. We think that's important to get people out of Clovis and into Fresno and then back home again at the end of the day. Pardon me. We're able to support the communities of Clovis. We take our passengers into Fresno and we also go into Tarpey. It's hard to believe that we have provided over 2 million rides in the past 10 years. I hadn't seen that statistic before I saw this, so that's pretty exciting for us. And Measure C will also support projects coming down the line for us, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. Just some examples of Measure C grants and what we've done with them. This bus is a zero emission bus. It was one of 2 that we put onto the road as a pilot project. We got a lot of information about what it felt like, looked like, cost to run zero emission buses for us. These buses are still on the road. I like to call them a very spectacular failure. Zero emission busing is really, really hard, but we have a much better idea of what this is going to look like for our operation coming up in the future. And that was thanks to Measure C. Next slide, please. We've put on some pretty cool technology on our buses. We've got next bus technology coming up, some intelligent transportation. And if you look at that map, that's a map of our new routes. It's not the best map, but it just shows you that we are going from a loop inefficient model to linear lines that will get passengers anywhere in our city in less than 45 minutes with only 1 transfer. For us, that's a really big deal in Clovis. Next slide, please. This is the county DSS. That's one of the longest bus stops I've ever seen in my whole life. But we designed that bus stop specifically to be able to accommodate Clovis Transit vehicles, also with FACTS vehicles. Both services go to that stop. That is a hub for services. for the county, and it also is a large employment center. And TOD, through Measure C, paid for that improvement. And of course, that's our brand new landmark senior center and transit center. TOD also paid for improvements to the trailway. So we had an idea we would really like people to walk, bike, or pedal, however they want to get there, over to the senior center, enjoy activities, and then make their way safely back home. It also helped pay for the bus stop on that project. Next. And, oh, that is the bus shelter. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. It looks really cool. It looks like it's from outer space there. But it's our biggest bus stop. We consider it a hub. We're going to be putting some electronics and some things out there for next bus information that will be really cool for us. Next up. All right, so if we don't have Measure C, what is going to happen? And we've started modeling this to really understand what the impacts might be. And some of the options for our passengers and for our service model may be that we would need to reduce our service hours. We may have to put fares back into place. We may have to reduce our service area and go back to the required 3/4 of a mile sort of area that we are required to provide services. And we may have to delay projects due to local match. We are new to the local match game with the federal dollars, but I will tell you, we are looking at some significant capital investments in the next 10 years for operating center that we'd like to build. And without the match from Measure C, the future's a little unclear for that particular project that we want to do. You can go to the last. This is the last slide, but I do want to let you know what's coming up. I've touched a little bit on our new routes. Those will be debuting in 2026. We're currently undergoing replacement of our solar lights. They've just ended their useful life, so we're putting in brand new bright solar lighting at our bus stops and also expanding our solar lights into bus stops that don't currently have light. I mentioned our next bus technology. We're looking also to implement a kiosk at one of our major bus stops that you saw a picture of. Just very much like if you're riding light rail, it would display when your next bus is coming. All of our routes go through our landmark property. So that's a hub for us, and that will help our passengers know when they're going to be able to get on their bus. And then
Just for clarification, Landmark, people may not know, not from Clovis, that's downtown Clovis. That's where the transit center is, and then the senior center and the new library is going.
That's right. It's at Clovis and 3rd. Come see us anytime. And you're right, the new library is getting ready to be built there too. So we're really excited about what's happening in Old Town. I do want to talk specifically about our capital investments over the next 10 years. Public transit in the state of California is under a mandate. It's called the Innovative Clean Transit Rule, and this requires all public transit operators to convert their fleets to zero-emission buses. For us, we think that model will look like a combination between battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell. This means that the buses that we currently purchase for between $200,000 and $400,000 will be 3 times that amount. So the buses that provide zero emission are about $1.2 to $1.4 million. In addition, we're looking at having to build a new transit operations center that will support all the infrastructure that will be needed to have battery electric charging, hydrogen fuel cell hydrogen storage, potentially production at some point, and then our expanded fleet. So without Measure C, we are really trying to understand what the future holds for transit, specifically for Clovis Transit. I am done. My phone number's up there. Bethany's phone number's up there. Go through the COG first. That's the rule. But we will be happy to give you any information. And thank you very much for your time. Can I introduce Greg? Oh, now my colleague, Greg Barfield from the City of Fresno Facts.
Hey, I was trying to be right here when you finished up, so we would be on time. Hi, Gregory Barfield. I am the Director of Transportation for the City of Fresno and Fresno Area Express. So proud to be here. Mine's a little bit more condensed because some of you heard from my colleague and partner in crime, Joe Joe Vargas earlier, and so I will refer to the May 6th slide deck that's also on the website to use. That has a lot of the who, what, when, where, why, and who we are. I want to focus on, let's go to slide 2, Paul. We're going to focus on about 3 slides here and try to get you out of here. Our operating budget, although it's difficult to see up there, is $232 million this year. Most of that is capital, $136 million. But let me just tell you why Measure C is so important. When the federal government gives us $1, they really give us 80 cents, and we have to match that with local funds. And that's what we do with and how we use Measure C. And again, as Amy pointed out, there's also some match in some of our state and local items that we do. Our operating budget is $95.4 million. And again, when you see this presentation, you will be able to see that in the operational side of things, how we continue to match the dollars to the point where, if you go to the next slide, you will see in the last 10 years that our the Measure C revenue has increased by about 65%, but our operating budget has increased by 103%, and our capital budget has increased by 13%. So again, it's the ability to use Measure C as a match. We actually overmatch because of the Measure C dollars that we do receive. Now, there's been a lot of conversation, I understand, in the media about frequencies, but I want to break it down in 2 sides. So if you go to the next slide, Paul, you kind of know what we're operating here. Again, it's increased frequencies, day service, weekend service, and our night service, where we go to 12:15 a.m. on 5 routes, and that's going to increase in January. We'll go to the next slide there. All right, here's where I really want to focus on these next 2 slides. Frequency. So I just ran a scenario just for you all in this room that if we were to increase frequencies on the routes that are listed here, so Shaw Avenue, which is our Shaw Crosstown 9, if we increase that by 10 minutes in the morning to 10-minute frequencies, it would cost us an additional $527,251. And then as you look down this list, including the beautiful DSS building, if we increase frequencies and move from a 30-minute frequency down to a 20-minute frequency for Route 28, that would get West Fresnans, folks downtown, and those in the center of the community to the DSS center and back, just to increase those frequencies down by adding extra equipment would be $689,009. This also, one of the considerations we have to factor in is, do we need to buy additional equipment? And do we need to buy or have more staff? And we'll go to the next slide because I'm really going to get into that consideration. Now, coverage, 110 square miles in the city of Fresno. As you can see from our route map, we do not cover the entire city, but yet our city has needs and our residents have needs. Last year, we carried 10.3 million passengers, and they're telling us where they need to go. So this year, in August, we added a Church Avenue Crosstown route. So it goes from Edison High School, West Fresno campus for Fresno City College. It connects an additional 18 other schools along that route and circles around and ends at the new Sanger West campus, which is in the city of Fresno. Okay. And as well as the new middle school, John F. Kennedy. That route alone, just the impact of that route, can serve within a half-mile radius on each side 43,854 residents, and 7,900 plus jobs are created in that one little corridor. And so that's why we understood that it was important to be able to move students and folks trying to get to work to where they needed to go by doing this crosstown Church Avenue route. It is our 19th route that we have established, and we think that in the long run, this is going to be a big benefit. And I can't wait for the next few days to see the first numbers coming out of that. But with that route, we had to add 8 new drivers and purchase 3 new buses. Okay. And so the net operating for that is $1.3 million. Now, I talk about coverage versus frequency. It's not an either or. You need both. You need both in this community because as this community continues to grow, the needs of where people need to go are going to grow, right? Our riders who are dependent on transit, look at the height of COVID, a 40-foot bus carried 10 people at a time, and yet we still carried 5 million passengers. In COVID, 5 million folks rode the bus with a capacity of 10 people plus the bus driver. So this is a transit-dependent community, and we have to be responsible for looking at increasing the frequency, to speed things up, to get them there at the peak times they need to be there, or to return them back to where they need to go, or to connect them between the two sides. But we also need to think about coverage. And the 2 areas, as you see from this map, the 2 areas that are missing coverage, Southeast Fresno, around that Sanger Unified Complex. Again, it's in the city of Fresno, and west of 99. And we have worked very hard with Public Works on the west of 99 side because we can't run a 40-foot bus right now up and down Polk Avenue until it's expanded to its widest width. And so we have worked together to get grant coverage for that. Some of that is matched by Measure C. I'm going to leave it at that because the last slide really kind of just tells you what we would do in the future. We're going to keep doing what we're doing based on what the community asks us to do. And the very final slide has got my contact information, and feel free to call anytime for a ride. All right. Now, the great Moses Stites with Fresno County Rural Transit steps to the podium. Your turn, Moses.
What an intro. Moses Stites, General Manager, Fresno County Rural Transit Agency. And I apologize, the map is a little small, so hopefully you have your glasses on. I'm going to give you just a brief overview of the overall FCRTA, and just to give you an idea of the services that we operate for some of you who are not familiar with the FCRTA. We cover approximately 6,000 square miles. We have 8 fixed routes. The fixed routes are mainly between the intercity connections, primarily from the city of Coalinga into Fresno, Fireball into Fresno with all the cities in between, Orange Cove. Thank you, Larry. If you want to get up and look at the map a little closer, I think it'll give you a good idea of our service area. Orange Cove into Fresno, which covers the entire northeast area. And then we have the southeast corridor from Kingsburg into Fresno with various stops. And we also have 3 college routes. One that serves the Huron to Coalinga College, and also 2 routes that serve specifically the Reedley College. Those are intercity routes. And I really want to highlight those because without Measure C, we would not be able to operate those routes along with the rest of these other routes. Again, we cover 8 fixed routes. We cover the 13 incorporated cities, excuse me, excluding the city of Fresno and Clovis, although we do traverse in and out of the city of Clovis and Fresno. And those 13 cities incorporate anywhere from 1 to 4 demand response vehicles. And that's the difference between the fixed route operations, which have the fixed stops, and they're also on schedule. And the demand response are real-time dispatching, meaning you can call in from any of the cities on an 800 number and request your ride. And the rides are typically delivered within 15 to 20 minutes within any of those cities. And believe me, we get complaints when the rides are 20, 30 minutes late. People focus on those rides for various needs. We traverse 2,800 to 3,000 miles per day, and we have a spare ratio of 5 to 1 buses The standard spare ratio for the FTA that allows is really 25%. We have 27 vehicles in operation for the routes. 25% of 27 is what? 5, 6 vehicles? How are you going to deliver services in the 13 cities with 4 vehicles in those cities and 8 intercity routes? And look at the locations. Coalinga, 64 miles one way, Orange Cove 42, Fireball 42, Kingsburg 24, 26 miles. So we outstation a lot of our buses, the majority of them at these municipal yards. So we have a partnership with the cities as well. Our annual budget is 16 million per year, and we get approximately, Measure C has gone up. You've heard from my counterparts. We're up at $4 million a year now, which is about 25% of our budget. As Greg indicated earlier, our primary passengers are dependent, transit dependent. They're not choice riders. It's like not like in large urbanized areas where you have a choice of your passenger car or getting on a fixed route, and frequency and coverage, as Greg alluded to very well. So did Amy. And ours are a little different because of the time factor. If we could conquer the distance with time and expediency, that would be a miracle, but we can't. That Coalinga route coming in from the Coalinga into Fresno has 17 stops. We get complaints weekly on the duration of that route, sometimes 2 hours. Why? Which stop do you want me to eliminate? The Riverdale stop, the Carruthers route, or stop, Raisin City? How about Easton? Let's eliminate Easton. We can't do that. We try to serve everybody. And then when you have a wheelchair passenger who needs to be board, it takes extra time, sometimes 15, 20 minutes. The bus has to be deployed. The ramp has to be brought up. The individual has to be secured in a position so that there's tie downs for the wheelchair and the individual passenger. All of these things are operational. They may not seem important, but they are from a safety standpoint because we're all regulated by the California Highway Patrol Motor Carrier Division. And our buses have to be safe, and they have to be inspected 30 and 45 days at a time. What you have here is a list of the different type of services that we currently provide with Measure C, and also some previous services that we've done in the past. We also provide no fares for the seniors, the disabled, and veterans in all the intra-city routes. That's within all the in-city routes. So if you're a senior, you can go into the bus, you're not going to pay a fare. The fares are fairly reasonable anyway, 35 cents, 50 cents. What can you buy for 35 and 50 cents these days? Not very much. The intercity fares are also reasonable. One-way fare from Fireball into Fresno, $9.25. Coalinga into Fresno, $11. You can't get very much service for that in a non-public entity. So we're able to achieve all of these things that we're able to do with the assistance of Measure C, along with matching our other dollars. The beauty of Measure C is that we are able to match other funding sources which are required. Our federal assistance, 5311 operating assistance, if we didn't have a local match of 45%, we would not be able to land another $3-4 million a year because they require a local match. Measure C is our only local match. We're dependent on it, just as our transit-dependent operators. Next slide, please. The aspirational future and operational projects for Measure C, we're looking at expanded hours of service. We've heard the public, we've heard you, the steering committee, the facilitation committee. We do want expanded hours of service, evening and weekend services, because we don't provide evening and weekend services. We do provide some weekend services to a minority of our routes, meaning a few percentage, and we want to increase the frequency of some of these fixed route services. Rather than having that Coalinga route come in an AM inbound from Coalinga and a 4:30 p.m. outbound, we might be able to have a couple of express routes during that time. We've heard those complaints as well. They're noted. But again, because of our limited budget, we do what we can for the type of services that are required and needed in some of these cities. We also want to add a script program along with a microtransit in the rural areas. Next slide, please. These are really key important capital projects, and I know some of you have heard, and I know a couple of individuals that I saw that came out to our ribbon cutting in Selma for the maintenance facility. Larry and Scott were out there. And we designed this facility, and you heard Amy Hans from Clovis talk about it, and I'm sure Greg they have something in the works as well, is we designed this facility so that it could be solar, it could have charging and battery energy management system. We have to accommodate this transition mandated by the state for zero emission vehicles, so you have to have that infrastructure. And that is a possibility, but it takes a long time planning. We used $10 million of Measure C to fund a $20 million facility in the city of Selma. Without Measure C, that facility would not have been able to been there. And someday I hope you have the opportunity to come and visit. You can always talk to Larry and Scott. They were there at the ribbon cutting, and we welcome you. Another aspect of what we want to do in the future, and we're currently doing it, that photo in the upper right-hand corner is an affordable housing project in Sanger that we teamed up with the city of Sanger and also a private developer so that we were able to put in this battery energy management system, which stores 373 kilowatt hours along with a solar and one charger. And we're going to put in a microtransit component there so that the residents have a car on site, electric vehicle, charging. And we were able to do this with the help of Measure C, along with a private developer and also the city of Sanger. And we have 2 other projects, one in Coalinga, and we're currently working on 3 others, one in Huron and one in Fowler. And ironically, with the permission of the city of Fresno and talking with Greg, we were able to work with Self-Help at a location in Jensen and Walnut, doing a route deviation with our West Side Transit from Mendota to traverse into Jensen and Walnut to pick up passengers at that Self-Help development. So the collaboration is there among all entities, all public entities and also private development. Next slide, please. So these are the type of vehicles that we have. The one in the upper left-hand corner is I won't mention the name, it's a P word, and it's a 40-foot bus. It's one of those that Amy referred to as one of our successful failures in the bus industry because of modern technology and it changing so fast. The center one is a Chevy Bolt, and then the bottom one is a BYD, Build Your Dream Buses. So these are the type of transitional zero-emission vehicles that we're transitioning to so that we can provide greenhouse gas reductions, do our part, and also lessen the vehicle miles traveled with these efficient vehicles to serve our passengers in the rural areas, which are all transit dependent and primarily live in disadvantaged communities. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Moses. I'm really paying attention to the time, probably more than maybe even you are. We're 4 minutes over. I want to do just a few things very briefly. Here's a timeline I think we can work with. I've asked staff if they would put up these presentations and the PowerPoint slides that go with them by tomorrow. Then we would give you the weekend to take a look at them. By Monday at 5 o'clock, submit any questions you have on any of these presentations to COG. They will then send it out. I will send a personal note to the City of Clovis, City of Fresno folks saying, please, when COG's ask you these questions, answer them ASAP. So COG staff can do a cut and paste, and we'll have one document with all the questions and all the answers on it that you can review by Tuesday. And then, I'm sorry, COG will get that information at end of business Monday. They'll have all the questions. By end of business Tuesday, they will have asked their various staffs what the answers are. By Wednesday, you'll have the answers, and then actually, does that work? We're meeting is that Wednesday? Is that Thursday? And Thursday, you have 1 day to take a look at that sheet. In addition, the other thing you have to do, if we're trying to stay on a timeline here, and anyway, if we stay on a timeline here, which is a little aggressive, is you talked about the 20 versus 30 and the implementation guidelines. So the other thing I have to ask you to do, which will be a separate document that COG will do a cut and paste with, I suppose, or actually we'll take that back to the facilitation team and see if we can help answer some of those questions. we'd like your questions or suggestions or ideas on the implementation guidelines around, let's say, a 30-year measure. What do you think you need to feel comfortable to approve that? So we're asking you to do that. And if you could do that, yeah, by Monday, we need some of that so we can then process that and get something back to you. One of the things I'm very concerned about is that if we get stuck in the mud here on the implementation guidelines over 2030, we don't get to anything. We have to somehow get the broad strokes of what is going to be successful on the implementation guidelines without getting mired into the, with a comma here kind of thing. We got to get the general idea down so people feel comfortable if they decide to go for 30. But we can't address everything. If we try to get this thing soup to nuts on the implementation guidelines, it's just crawl to a stop here. And we have to move on. We got to know what we're dealing with, 20 versus 30, so we know what money we're dealing with for the general allocations. So what I would ask you to do is please give your suggestions on how we can make folks feel comfortable about the measure, that you feel comfortable about how it's being reevaluated, but in more general, broader strokes than actually besides, I want 6 people on the committee and they're going to be 1 person from this area. That's too much, okay? Just give us the broad strokes that's going to make you feel comfortable. Whether, hey, it's a 30-year measure, it needs to be reviewed every 10 years, whatever it is. And so we can put that together. And what I ask you to move this process forward, again, is don't get stuck on the super minute details of that. Let's get the broad strokes so people feel comfortable, whether it's a 20 or 30, they feel comfortable with that. Okay? With that, yes, email that to COG staff and then you can, you know what? Email that to me. COG staff's got enough on their plate. Email those suggestions to me. I guess my wife and I are going to be working on some things this weekend. Anyway, just email it to me. We'll take care of it. The last thing I want to do, and Paul suggested this, I was going to have Paul put on tape the comparisons between other self-help counties, and he says, Mark, you know what, let's hold that off, and while we have some very important people here, Scott and Mohammed, who they say they're going to get back to us, but maybe they're not, they're going to be a little busy. We have them here now. If you want to hang around and ask some questions of them, we can also put that on video that you can look at later. I know some of you have to leave at 5:30 and it's 5:30. I got 5:38, so I'm going with my computer. So you can leave if you want, but if you want to stay around and ask some questions, that might expedite things in terms of the Q&A going to the road folks, and we can get it on video so you don't have to ask the same question. So with that, those of you leave, thank you for being here. I'm going to open it up now to anybody who wants to stick around and ask questions of the road folks. And Amber, go ahead.
I actually just wanted to make a note as folks are leaving that the CVHPI folks left a response about their data collection on the table back there.
Okay, thank you very much. And is that going to be posted as well? Is COG staff planning to post that as well? The Central Valley Health Policy Institute. Could you send it to COG staff so they could then? Well, I know it's hard copy, but some people might want to access it. Some people might want to access it. It shouldn't be very hard to send them a PDF document. Well, whoever has it, can we contact her? Someone contact her and just send us the
I'm guessing
PDF
that's
document?
Dr. Werner, and so you have Dr. Pacheco Werner. You have to ask her.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah. We'll get it posted because we want the information out there. But I would appreciate one second. I would appreciate your indulgence here. I know you guys are volunteering your time and I greatly appreciate it, but COG staff, it seems to be really overworked. I'm with them here at night, sometimes 7, 8 o'clock at night working. So please be helpful. So to the extent you can just send them a PDF, just send them a PDF so they can just post it, please. And so Lee, what's your point?
Future meeting dates.
Right now, September 18th, October 9th, and October 16th. But I will say the way things are going, plan on doing other meetings between the September 18th and October 9th. To get through this, we're just going to have to. So I was going to say we're going to drive off that bridge when we get to it. That probably wouldn't be a good joke. We'll get to that. Okay. So with that, those of you that can stay, please do. We'll ask the street folks, the road folks to answer any questions that you have so we don't have to have duplication. So if you got questions, now, Veronica, did you have your hand raised?
I did, but Dr. Crowell announced it. It was just there's a blog post today questioning the T4All data collection and questioning CVHPI's and Dr. Pacheco Werner's methodology in specific. And so Dr. Pacheco Werner issued a response on inaccuracies around the methodology on that blog post. So if that's what she posted down there. And then my second question was going to be whether the comparative measure presentation was going to be shared online, emailed to the committee or posted?
We're gonna do that next time.
Okay.
We'll do the comparison next time. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, those of you that have to leave, feel free. Those of you that can stay, if you've got questions for the roads folks, for the city and the county, here's your chance to pepper them with questions. And I apologize to Mohammed and Scott for having to stick around a little longer. Lino?
I had a question. So
Hold on. Could you keep it down, please? We're still in a meeting. Could you keep it down, please? So Lino can ask his question. Go ahead, Lino.
So I got clarification from Moses on our last conversation, the meeting before last, and then clarification on. So we hear these numbers, we get these big, fantastic numbers. We have 15,000 passengers per month. We have, X million passengers a year. And I got clarification on the rural routes. It is actually one-way trips. Is that the same definition for the Fresno Fax and the Clovis, whatever, transportation board?
That's a good question. We measure our trips individually. And so what we do is just a standard industry. We divide it by 2 to get round trips. So if, for example, we have 800 trips per day on the 27 routes, technically it's 400 round trips. Okay. The majority, there's maybe a small percentage that are single trips, but we do them individually because there's a Transportation Development Act, which is run by the state, Caltrans, which monitors the cost per trip, cost per mile, not round trip. Everything is individualized, and then hourly breakdowns. So that's just a measuring tool, but it's a good point, and I should have clarified it. So you divide it by 2 for the trips, and that gives you the round trips.
It gives you amount
And
of
my understanding, that's the way
passengers.
Fresno does it as well.
So when the
Everybody does it
15,000
that way.
passengers per month, which was one of the numbers, I don't remember if it was Fresno or Clovis, it could be only so many passengers, but that many trips are actually divided in 2. So it's 750 trips or 7,500 trips with the same person, could be potentially the same person doing that whole thing.
They count it per trip, one direction. Okay.
So when we hear these numbers, like these 10 million, or I don't say 10 million, but it's like 1.something million customers a year and stuff like that, it's
Well,
the trips that go.
There might also be people that are just going one direction. Maybe someone else is giving a ride someplace else. So you got to count it by one way, right? So
To add to your point, it gives for a good accounting because then it's an individual trip that's being measured because not all of them are round trips. So they're all individual trips or cost per hour, cost per mile, and so forth.
So maybe I think the clarity should be it's like 15,000 trips a month. That way. As opposed to riders. Okay, that's why I wanted to clarify if that was the same thing. Like you and I talked about the same thing coming from Clovis and Fresno also.
Correct. And that's our oversight because we're in the industry. So that's just kind of nomenclature for us. But yeah, our apologies on that.
Can I ask a question about county roads? My question is,
microphone, Mohammed, so we can.
you went over that portion quickly, but you seem to imply that state funding is based on population rather than on traffic. And that was a disadvantage in the unincorporated areas where there are few residents, but a lot of trucks. Is there any compensation there for the truck traffic or the?
No, there is no compensation for truck traffic. The formula is calculated based on 75% for population, 25% on road miles, not traffic. So if we got 3,400 miles of road, they look at that based what percentage of total California road miles that contains, you see. So They look at we get something like 3% of the total gas tax for Fresno. But our road miles is way more than 3%.
Sure, sure.
So that's how it's calculated. Yes.
I have,
Is that formula like state mandated, or who determines that 75 versus 25?
That is state mandated. They have calculated, but no, they're talking about gas tax. But yeah, that's the state for gas tax. But for Measure C, it's basically you guys determine what that formula should be.
Hopefully, because definitely that puts totally the unincorporated communities, even though they're only less than 180,000 you mentioned, but they have to travel the most and they have the least. And I have another question. When you describe the criteria on how you select the roads that you repair, there was one bullet that says complaints. Can you say more? So if you get more complaints from certain unincorporated community, then you fix that road versus the other ones? I didn't understand.
No, it's based on, well, it did say complaint, but our outreach, and if let's say one of our supervisors gets a lot of complaints from their constituents, they bring it to our attention. We go evaluate what the situation is. If it needs some immediate attention, then we try to address that situation.
Interesting. I will let know the residents that they just have to bombard their
Well,
supervisors.
I
with
mean,
questions,
that
right?
doesn't always work, because
Well, you just said that. I'm
because
not
the
reading
need,
my notes.
well, we have to see whether it's a valid point,
And I have another question. You mentioned about, roads where now there's going to be, it's already more traffic of heavy duty trucks, but also it's going to be increased. For example, in the western side of Fresno County, the county is approving mega projects that are bringing hundreds of additional diesel trucks to these communities where the roads are already bad. Imagine the tear that is going to happen in those roads. And we have been hearing that, because these mega projects are going to be giving a lot of tax dollars to the county, that the county, it's expected, the company thinks it's expected that that the county is going to use that money to fix those roads that are already bad. Is that a good estimate from this company? Is there a mechanism of tying some of the dollars that these companies are paying for taxes into really repairing the roads that they are, destroying?
Yes, if there are large projects that impact county roads, the way we look at it, if they generate significant amount of traffic that degrades the road, they have to pay a mitigation fee, a pavement mitigation fee that goes toward the repair of that specific road. So we don't put all those mitigation fees in one pot and try to spend it in different locations. So it goes toward that specific road that's being impacted.
The other thing, just to follow up on what you're saying, even if you're saying a supervisor gets a lot of complaints and they then act on it, there's a constraint here. The constraint here, you're supposed to address the worst roads first. So I would assume the county, when they get different supervisors asking for work, that's going to be a criterion that they're going to consider. If not, that's the determinative criteria, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's fine. Believe me,
The needs
they're
are everywhere,
very bad.
and we try to address the needs. We realize some of the communities, not that they have been forgotten, but the need is significant. If you want to put, for instance, sidewalk, well, you need to have some curb and gutter to address the drainage. You can't just go build concrete sidewalk. So, and if you want to put curb and gutter, where are you going to drain that? If there is no really basin to collect that runoff, then we have to build a basin for it. So the issue is cumulative. It just adds up, and the fundings are not going to address a lot of the community development deficiencies.
Just my last question, I promise. So you are saying that this mitigation fee is something that they pay on top of the taxes they would normally
Yes,
pay?
that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question for you on, can I, on the county?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, for county. City did a good job with color coding their streets. Do you have I don't know if you had the map, maybe I missed it. There a map for the county that shows like the red or the green, where the best roads are at?
Yeah, we have a map. Maybe I can email it.
That would be helpful. Send it to, again, we'll get it out to the committee, similar to the map that's got motion. The map should show each street on the pavement index where they fall in great, good, fair, et cetera. Or was it the street or areas?
No, for the county, like I'll give you an example. How does Western Fresno County compare to Eastern Fresno County as far as roads?
As far as pavement condition, is that?
Pavement condition, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can generate that.
Yeah.
Similar to that.
Yeah.
I just have a quick comment. Typically, when you have major developments like you're talking about, there should be an environmental document so all that information on what that developer is mandated by law, that's a legal binding document.
Yeah.
Should be in there. Not that any of these residents read those things. I mean, people don't. Well, that should never be an issue. Having worked for the state, that if it's a state facility, even
those type of
city government, it
projects-
should never be an issue.
Those type of projects require a traffic impact study, and the impact study determines what roads or if a bridge or an intersection requires any kind of improvement. And then we calculate a pro rata share for those improvements that the development has to pay toward.
So one question for the county, could you confirm that all streets in existing disadvantaged unincorporated communities are part of the maintained road system of the county?
They should be, yes.
Can you, how do I confirm whether I just remember this came up as an issue last time where some streets and some unincorporated communities were not considered part of the maintained road system and therefore not eligible for Measure C investment. So how do I confirm, or could you send us a map or?
No, not all.
No,
Well, so like there's a Lost City north of Kerman that I think is connected by a non-maintained county road, which means that it's not eligible for Measure C, if I recall correctly.
Their county did something in their measure where they added non-county maintained roads to be eligible for their tax measure. So that is something you could do, because it's true, if it's not part of county maintained mileage, we cannot use gas tax on it.
Would
So
that
if
be,
you-
would that be a private, I'm sorry, would that be a
Sorry.
private road?
No, no, I'm just talking about public roads. There are public roads, they're public right of way, but they're not part of the county maintained mileage. We haven't added roads to the county maintained mileage in a long time. And, but you in this tax measure could say, we want some of this sales tax money to go towards those roads. Madera County wrote it into their measure. So
Is there a way that you determine that criteria, that it's not just strictly a private driveway, but that it's used by the public, just not maintained and designated such as the county? Because I think that'd be good to add to the measure if there was the proper trigger. I wouldn't want to be using Measure C dollars to pave somebody's driveway.
No.
Well,
Well-
we have county service areas that are not part of our county maintained road systems. Those usually the homeowners in that community, they have to pay to maintain their roadways. As far as not county maintained public roadways, I have to check with our maintenance folks to get a list of those. I don't know off the top.
Yeah, it would be really great if we could get either a map of the current, so that we could get a sense of which roads. I agree that the Measure C shouldn't be for private driveways or anything like that, but I do remember this coming up as an issue last time. And just down the street, there's like one unincorporated fringe community right outside the city of Fresno that wouldn't qualify then, and they have a terrible, it's just dirt. So
Can I ask a question? I don't know the answer, I'm just asking the question. Can you legally use Measure C funds for something that's not in the Fresno does
Except
that
we're
work?
choosing to tax ourselves. We can choose to write anything.
Well,
we want.
do you know, just, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just wondering, can you do that? Is that legal? Can you take the money?
I guess yes, if Measure C allows spending money on not county maintained roadways. But again, I need to know the extent of those mileage. I don't know how many miles we're talking about. If it's gonna add another 1,000 miles to our maintained system.
Having that area, what is that area right now? It would be
Can we hold-
helpful.
So
Can we
two
hold-
different things. We
Oh,
would-
Aaron, can I hold 1 second for, you also introduce yourself. By the way, these are all very good questions for the implementation guidelines too. One of the things I worry about is sometimes we get a little bit into the weeds and then so just think about that. If that's an important issue, it can be addressed. But again, I'm sorry, Aaron, introduce yourself.
So
for the
Erin
record.
Higginson with Fresno County Public Works and Planning. So just really quick, it doesn't mean we would add to our maintained mileage, but I don't know the exact language, but I recently had a presentation from Madera County Transportation Commission, and they said they wrote road maintenance districts into their measure. So that's something you could do. I don't have the language, but I'm sure it's available. So that's, yeah.
So two requests. One, if we could get a map of the current maintained road system, that would be helpful to just see what is currently in the current definition. And then second, if at a minimum, you could cross-reference your 244 inventory of disadvantaged unincorporated communities and assess whether those streets and those communities in particular are within your maintained road system. That would be helpful. Thank
I
you.
mean, I can provide what our maintained road system is, but anything that's not part of our roadway system and exists, I don't know if we have that data, to be honest. We have to check with our maintenance.
We have some of it. It's not all mapped, but we do have some of it, but I can't promise we have all of it.
Can
mapped.
I ask a quick question? My community is Fresno County. It's unincorporated where I raise my kids. It's on Butte Central Avenue. And I've been talking to supervisors for years about, and I hear the same answer, what you guys are talking about, they're not part of the plan, but are you guys familiar with some of those roads or communities out in the county? Like Butte Avenue and Central? Is the
Yeah.
county aware of the roads, or what's the issue with Central Avenue and some of the other, because we're paying taxes. And my concern is anybody paying attention? Because I know my supervisor's not, you know what I mean, personally. You know what I mean?
Well, again, we have a pavement management system that prioritize our road condition, and based on basically how much available funding we have, we try to address the one that has the highest need first and prioritize. But again, I need to know the specific road that you're talking about, whether it's part of our maintained mileage system or not. Because if it's outside that maintained mileage system, unfortunately, we don't have any funding to.
No, I understand that. That's the same answer I've gotten for the last years, you know what I mean? Yeah, so, but, I mean, but that's.
We're looking to.
No, it's just, I understand that, but I'm looking to see if we can change some of those things because.
Well, again, if there is dedicated funding, probably from Measure C that can help in those areas, maybe that's something we can do.
But you know what, some of us are just trying to make people aware. If you guys are not even aware of that, then who's aware? You know what I mean? Because we're basically forgotten out there, and it seems like if I'm complaining, I'm not complaining. I've gone through Collegian, the Larson, Pacheco, and everybody gives the same answer. You understand? So I personally had to fix Central Avenue to get kids from my community to Kerman Unified because buses chose not to go in. So I put my own money and some of us collected to fix roads. We tried it with the county, but see, that's, like I tell you, at ADA for Kerman Unified, there's a lot of money going into the schools. The county, we're paying taxes. So I'm just trying to create an awareness.
Your property taxes don't go into the roads.
I
understand.
I understand that. To me, it's just create an awareness of what's happening in those
You
communities.
clearly have, and I think other people, frankly, from T4All, making people very aware of these issues. But remember, all of us are constrained by reasonableness. Rome wasn't built in a day. I know there are frustrations out there on every side, but everybody's going to have to compromise, and you have to look at this as a county-wide measure. There are people that want to focus on North Fresno. There are people that want to focus on this. There's a lot of different groups here, and no one is going to get exactly what they want. No one. And so please consider that this is a compromise consensus proposal. And so I understand, and forceful advocates, that's great. But at the end of the day, we have to come up with an allocation that is going to have to pass the COG policy board, is going to have to pass the county. There's a lot of groups that we have to pass it by. So I would just ask you to just think about those other things. Then just don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
I'm aware of that, you know.
Okay.
Because we always hear it. I mean,
Yeah.
with this measure, people from North Fresno want something. Clovis, we heard the presentation already. They need the funds by Measure C, or else.
Everybody's gonna have to give, right? So
can I ask a question? So I have a question, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you very much. So does the county do a CP or a PCI survey of all of the county maintained roads?
Yes, but again.
And when was the last time you did one?
we
How often do you do
continuously
them?
are doing it.
Pardon me?
We are continuously doing that. And we have a software called Street Saver that collects the data and analyze it. And they do inspection of county roads. We have a staff that does it continuously throughout the year.
Okay, so you're not hiring a contractor to do it. You guys do it yourself, and it's the photographs of the pavement, asphalt? Okay, all right. Then the other point that I just wanted to make, and whether we add some of the roads that are not county maintained, but they go to a population center. I mean, I just want to make the point that we're currently taking a teaspoon of peanut butter and trying to spread it across the entire loaf. Be careful to try to spread it across 2 loaves, and then call it a peanut butter sandwich, because there's no peanut butter in any of it. So anyway, thank you.
we're at almost 6:05. We kept people over about 35 minutes. I don't want to hold people too much longer. So maybe just 1 or 2 more questions, and then we have to cut it off. So anybody have any other questions they want to ask the road folks while they're here?
I want to ask Scott Mosier a quick question. So Scott, what's it cost right now to do a brand new mile of road? And then the other part of the question is, how much does it cost to do where you cut it down and resurface it?
Great. That's a great question, and it really gets at something a lot of folks out in the community don't appreciate the difference in costs on that. Good example, 1 mile new road, that's basically a reconstruction. So we have a project not far from here, First Street from Olive to Tulare in bad shape. We're going to completely reconstruct the asphalt. That's a $5 million project.
For 1 mile?
1 mile for a 4-lane roadway.
Wow.
That's most definitely wow reaction to that. But if it's just a mill and pave, so if we can catch it earlier, so then that winds up only being in the range of $1.5 million to $2 million for the same thing. That's again back to pavement management, pavement maintenance is, instead of, well, of course, we've got these worst streets. You want to address them, but if you only have so much money, do you address the one? And that's a grant-funded project. Do you address the one, or do you, do you cancel 3 or 4 projects that could save streets in fair condition and bring them all the way back up to new, or do you do just the one? Hopefully you could do them all, but if you have to choose, it becomes very difficult.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. We're adjourned. Thanks, guys.
I was here for questions. Yeah, that's twice, You're wasting my, filling this one. Brendan? Yeah, that's very. I'm sitting here, yeah.